Hello everyone, and welcome to Fleet's Random Ramblings. Yep, 59. Here we are. Um, Continuing to crack on through the weeks. I was just checking the community poll. It seems like more people than zero want to see more Hoi 4 on a Sunday. So, more Hoi 4 on a Sunday they shall have. And Thursdays will remain the random game day. Speaking of which, I probably need to record Thursday's video at some point either this evening or later down the line. Of course, I would like to try and get back into post-ramblings experiences for those on the Discord server. Of course, yep, Discord will be being released at some point next week, so probably next week's Ramblings is when the official Fleet of Oceans Discord server will be released, so again, keep an eye out for that one. So that you don't miss being in the server, because, well, who wouldn't want to miss being in the server? Oh, good lord. Very funny. Right, so, Fleet's Random Ramblings 59. Here it is. Nearly at 60. Can't believe it. Yeah. And then, of course, from 60 it'll be 70, then 70 it'll be 75, and then so on and so forth. Until we rapidly approach... well... 100. It's incredible. It just gets me every time, the fact that people do actually still want to come and listen to Fleet. Who... It never ceases to amaze me. Who's the panel tonight? Who knows, Knight? See who we get. The panel is never really set up beforehand unless I'm setting up a special guest. Whoever we get is whoever we get. And speaking of, let's get the Discord audience in. Hey! There we go. And ping! There we go. So the panel will be who the panel will be. And we'll just have to roll off what we've got.
Yay.
Shush. Anyway, so, obviously to start with, we have so only 2 of the 3 Fantastic Funders have actually put in their questions for this week's Ramblings. But that's okay. They all have the privilege. Whether or not they choose to exercise it is entirely up to them. So, Timu Locker asks, how would Fleet of Oceans react if he woke up as an ensign on Nelson's ship on the morning of the Battle of Trafalgar? What would he do with all the hindsight he has? I'm an ensign. I have no direct path to speak to the Admiral. If I even try, I'll be beaten into submission for not being at my battle quarters station.
Quarters station.
Yeah, all I can do is fight the battle as best I can and try not to die. That's basically all I can do. I can't use my hindsight as an ensign. I have to, especially during the Classic Age of Sail. Brackman asks, how would you redesign an ISD to continue the role they take in the Tarkin Doctrine, and at the same time being able to stand up better to the equipment the Rebel Alliance has available? Well, if we're talking about an ISD, the ISD is perfectly set up for its role in Tarkin Doctrine. What it's not set up for is dealing with the Rebel Alliance. Because remember, the ISD is your premier station ship. It shows up if you've made enough noise to actually piss off Imperial Command, and they've released a capital asset and all the things that come with it, or it's a prized world that would dictate having an ISD near or around it. So, for most of the early part of the Imperial period, when it was the so-called Imperial Peace, before the Rebel Alliance really got going, as we get towards the 10 to 5 year period before the Battle of Yavin, you're looking at the ISD basically being station flagship, capital asset in the limited fleet engagements the Imperial Navy fought in this period, and almost a colonial, a large-scale colonial vessel like a heavy armored cruiser.
Make one argument for one modification.
Well,
I think you will agree with me.
I haven't even gotten to that bit yet. However, the problem comes when the Empire tries to keep using it in this role, when it's become abundantly clear that they're dealing with rebel cells that, if you show up with an ISD, them having made enough noise, they'll just either jump to hyperspace or maneuver in such a way that your relatively slow lumbering capital ship can't really deal with them, and you can't really pursue because they will have craft with better hyperdrives than you, and your TIE fighters, despite having large numbers of them, are really not able to deal with the sort of way the Rebel Alliance operates. We see it countless times. So what you're looking at here is you either need to, as it becomes clear the Rebel Alliance is becoming a real threat, you either need to revise doctrine, so the ISD goes around with a small flotilla now, so instead of it just being shit hits fan, Imperial Command gets pissed, ISD shows up, it's now shit hits fan, Imperial Command gets pissed, ISD plus small flotilla / fleet shows up. Ideally, you'd want a pair of Carracks and a pair of Lancers, if you can get both of those, because the Carracks are fairly nippy and do have the ability to deal with ships of their own size and smaller alone, and as a pair can supplement the ISD's firepower, and the Lancers just massively boost your anti-fighter capability and free up your own fighters to actually go and deal with, to go out and hunt for the rebels basically. And in terms of fighter complement, I would try and use what is questionably canon right now, but we know of in Legends as the Imperial Skip Ray Blast Boat.
I know they are still canon.
Oh, fair enough. So
the Imperial is still the Skip Ray Blast Boat is still an Imperial vessel.
Fair enough. So in that case, then I would trade, if you're not expecting action against capital units, I would trade the relatively single-use TIE bomber for the Skip Ray Blast Boats that could not only perform a heavy fighter, gunboat, and bomber role, while not being as good at all of them as specific craft are, it can do all of those roles, which is kind of vital when you're dealing with the Rebel Alliance, and you don't know quite what they're going to show up with on a daily basis. But it's also it's just a more capable, it gives you the flexibility, and most importantly, in terms of certain missions, hyperspace independence for your aircraft wing that TIE fighters don't usually give you. Sorry, TIE bombers don't usually give you.
Now, I'll add some bits where I actually would change stuff with, I would do agree mostly that the Imperial Star Destroyer is an excellent fleet overall unit. I entirely agree with this assessment there. That perhaps, honestly, they've not. But honestly, the problem we have with Star Wars is a lot of time we see them throw Imperial Star Destroyers at everything. That's primarily because they have the Imperial Star Destroyer model already there, and it costs money to make an actual other model. But that's real-life concessions. Going off the actual lore, they do use smaller ships more often. One of the big changes that I would make to the Imperial Star Destroyer is give it more anti-air cannons.
Yeah,
we know this is capable because it's the 8th Fleet, I believe. The Grand Admiral of the 8th Fleet stole anti-air turbo lasers from the Death Star project to massively upgun his Star Destroyer's anti-air battery.
Yeah.
And it worked. The problem is, they didn't do this when I really think they should have. Additionally, I disagree with the use of the Lancer. The Lancer is a premier anti-fighter vessel of the Imperial Navy. I agree. We've got a problem with it. It's slower than a bloody Star Destroyer.
I'm aware.
I personally would actually argue more for the use of Arquintons, like C-Dot has mentioned earlier, or
The problem
in
with
particular the
Arquintons,
Imperial Raider class.
the Arquintons isn't really an anti-fighter asset. It's more of a...
I personally would give it an actual anti-fighter proper refit, personally.
I mean,
Because
if we're talking
four
about
twin medium turbo lasers.
if we're talking about multi-role frigates, that's what the Carracks are there for.
Ah,
I know they're
the
not as
Arquintons
good.
is actually
I know
smaller.
Oh, no.
Admittedly,
Oh no, I'm aware, but basically the Carracks, while they aren't as dedicated as the Lancers are to anti-fighter work, they can still do a more reasonable job than a lot of other assets in
yes,
Imperial
because
service.
admittedly they have 10 singular heavy turbo lasers, which isn't bad, honestly.
And a bunch
for
of
the
smaller
ship of their
dual laser
size.
cannons, which is actually really useful
Yes.
for dealing with smaller fighters.
Personally, I would give the Arquintons a retrofit, though, because while the Carrack's bigger and it's faster, it's not actually as good in terms of an overall cruiser role. It's a relatively...
Well, no, it's not supposed to be a cruiser
It
role
punches
in this
above... It is.
Case. It's not in this
It-
case. It's in.
I
the
know, but in general, it is classed as a light cruiser.
Oh yeah, I know.
the
But
Arquintons is also slightly smaller, but it's got better layout for what we want.
I disagree. I think that if
The
you're
Carrack
going...
can't get all its guns on one side because they've got the whole problem of it's slightly blistered.
Yeah, no, I
It's
get
the side
that.
by side.
No, I get that. But again, if you're talking about the way the rebels like to fight, getting in close and personal, it won't be a long-range anti-fighter slugging match. They'll be in close and personal, dancing around trying to confuse your turbo lasers. At that point, if the Carrack has guns on all sides, it can bang away in all directions.
Which is why I would petition for a retrofit to the Arquintons instead.
Mm.
Because the Arquintons already has its
I mean, the Carrack
four,
already
like,
exists.
quad to dual. Well, so does the Arquintons.
Yeah,
We've got more of the Arquintons, and the Arquintons is a newer design.
Well, the thing with the Arquintons is that it's being used as a small-level station ship, whereas the Carracks aren't really doing much apart from being attached to Imperial fleets.
They're primarily used as system defense ships.
Well, in this
Carrack.
let's trade positions then. If we're sending this formation in, so ideally you have an Imperial and
Also,
2 to 3 Carracks. That is basically you've pissed off Imperial Command. This is a response force, and in
would
that
I know
particular
another reason
case,
why I think the Arquintons is better?
and in that particular case, then you've got the Carracks make more sense.
No, they don't for one main reason. The crew complement of a Carrack-class light cruiser to operate at full capability is 1,092 crew.
And for the Aquitens,
The Arquintons?
Yep.
100.
Okay, well, in that case, then you've just reinforced. In that case, then you've just reinforced my argument even more. Then take the Carracks off
No,
system defense
because-
ship roles and attach them to these specialized.
I
rapid
would rather
response
have
forces.
I'd rather have these rapid response forces than the Arquintons.
No, I would
Because
rather.
the Arquintons is a more capable multi-role vessel.
I'm
They also
sorry. I
have an excellent-
disagree.
They also have
If
a brilliant capability of they have an internal hangar. The Carrack can only mount them externally.
Yeah, but the Carracks aren't there for that. We've got an Imperial One at the centerpiece of this response group. We don't. You're thinking about this from a policing action role. I'm not. I'm thinking about if I am having to dispatch an Imperial One to an area where there isn't normally an Imperial One, I am sending it there because shit has hit fan. Therefore,
That's why if I'm detaching this as an actual battle fleet, I'm not using Carracks either. I'm going bigger.
well, no.
Trying to get out the Vindicators and Gladiators,
Mm.
which are the actual supporting vessels for this type, and then get a lot of Raider-class corvettes.
Problem is,
If we are going to send a Star Destroyer, you want to send it with proper support, not old and outdated vessels.
well, the problem we've got is. I think I'm basically trying to use what we've have, and also, to be fair, the lack of crew. While the crewing requirements are something you need to consider, we're also the Empire. Manpower isn't something that is an issue for us,
Technically true,
and also,
but
like again, bear in mind, I'm having to keep. So the Carracks might require a lot of crew, but they're also. It's basically down to the fact that you want to make a. Like, you don't want to show up too heavily gunned. You want to show up like you're dealing. I just don't. At least, well, put it this way. My
To
choice,
a
my
degree, I
choice.
think this is actually a slight difference in our doctrine.
Yeah, thing is, basically, you do make a good point about the Vindicators,
Hmm.
the heavy cruisers that are because they're about
Oh,
the same.
speaking of which,
they're-
I need to
they're
beat you over the head
basically-
for a comment you made yesterday.
They're basically just equivalent to they're basically what if Karak but modern. So again, they'll do.
Well, no, they're also much bigger.
Yeah, but nah, they're not. Depends on
Yeah,
which. Depends
Vindicators,
on which.
Vindicators are 600 meters.
Oh, how big?
Carracks are 350.
Oh.
Carracks are not small ships.
Yeah, Vindicator might be too much ship then. Although
Well, they could
actually,
use them as an escort ship.
although actually, you could go. Yeah, are you sure we're talking about the same Vindicator here?
Vindicator class heavy cruiser. Basically the mini Dorito.
Yeah, I was sure they were smaller.
Oh no, they're big. They're designed to replace the dreadnoughts.
Oh, I was sure they were smaller.
Like these. Right, the best description I've heard of the Vindicator for when you need to send a Star Destroyer, but not a full-scale Star Destroyer.
Hmm.
But they also work excellently for defense because they've got a lot of point defense guns on top of much more. Part of the reason why I'm also advocating for the Arquintons is the Arquintons and Vindicator have far better targeting capabilities than the Carrack does.
I think
The Carrack's got the heavy firepower. I agree.
I think
If we're fighting the rebels, do we need heavy turbo laser batteries?
I thought the Carracks also carried light anti-fighter weaponry.
They carry 20 laser cannons, which is technically, I guess you can use it that way, yes. Or instead, you
'Cause
can potentially get far more out of a other. Go on.
Oh, in that case then. Oh, I just realised I forgot a ship existed.
Which one?
I'm literally just going to go with an Imperial, a Vindicator, and like 8 Tartan patrol cruisers. Just
Yeah,
all
Tartans also would work.
all,
Tartans,
the,
I think,
all
are the
the
best one.
all the guns in all the directions. Pew 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 pew. Rat-a-tat tat.
Recommend Dreadnought heavy cruisers with AA refits don't work very well because they're insanely crew intensive.
Yeah,
16,000
Yeah,
crew.
at that point you are starting to get towards what on earth are all these people doing?
And also, they're very slow, and the design for the Dreadnought, we would have to completely rip all of it out because it's based on blisters, like the Carrack is.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. Okay.
But
So,
yeah.
first
Back to
first
collecting
question
questions.
from Discord. Republican officer asks, your question, Fleet. The year is 1972. What are the chances of a SAG comprised around the Newport News CA-148 with a couple of Fram Gearings and 2 Forrest Shermans surviving and winning an old-fashioned World War II style surface engagement against 2 Sverdlovs with 6 destroyer screens, 3 Kotlin and 3 Scory class? Oh, they're going to win because just because it starts as an old-fashioned World War II style surface engagement, the range will still be long enough that the Newport News can still go, telegraph pole be upon ye.
Sorry, remind me basically what the situation actually is.
It's basically
I'm just collecting questions, so I can't really Google it currently. Or I'll just try and get my basic ones. Because Newport News is at Des Moines, and they are scary assets. What was being discussed there, Hood, was actually I don't actually know because Fleet's got it, but basically how would we do Imperial patrolling and such, or what upgrades would be used to Imperial Star Destroyer /
but
Imperial
we've
Fleet.
already moved on
Yeah.
from that one.
Yeah, I'm just
Kind
explaining
of-
that. I'm just explaining to Hood. Like Hood was asking what was being discussed.
Yeah. So for this, so Newport News is, I believe, one of the.
She's a Des Moines.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that's a Des Moines.
She's I think the last of the Des Moines.
I'm sure there's two Forrest. So Forrest
Which one was
Shermans
this?
are the. Forrest Shermans are the. Forrest Sherman class destroyer. Okay,
Good news,
so
there's
these.
no blood.
Okay, so these are all mostly gun-based warships. Some of the Fletchers will be.
6
So
destroyers.
2 of the Fram gearing. Oh, I'm sorry. I've just realised. You're putting. Okay, never mind the destroyers here. That's a Des Moines. against
Yeah,
two.
the Des Moines going to crush those Sverdlovs.
I'm sorry. I know there are two Sverdlovs there, and they're good cruisers. That's a Des Moines. That's a Des Moines.
This is also like a 1972 engagement between a Des Moines and some really fucking browbeaten Sverdlovs. To put a finer point on why exactly this is so funny and why the Des Moines could probably solo that entire task group.
Why wasn't?
When it comes to the Des Moines, the two forward gun turrets, the triple 8-inch turrets, with the Mark 16s, I believe, with the funny autoloaders, a single Des Moines with its two forward guns could outshoot the entire Otago class of heavy cruisers.
Mm.
And it has radar direction, 1970s radar direction for those gun turrets. The Des Moines could quite easily act like she's a pocket Iowa, sit outside their range, and just beat the shit out of them the whole time with accurate fire from the get-go.
Yeah, pretty much.
All she'd need for the Frams and the Forrest Shermans to do is to just act as a bit of an extension for her radar. And they can easily re-guide stuff onto targets for her as well.
I mean, if the Forest Shermans want to, they can also open up with their 5-inch guns because they'll also have a reach advantage over some of the Russian destroyers, given that even the Sverdlovs will have no time for the American destroyers.
Yeah, the Sverdlovs will almost exclusively, even if it's the ones that were refitted to have SAMs on, and they're just SAMs. They're going to be focusing on the big target that can kill all of them, and that's the Des Moines, and they're not going to be able to touch her. So the other destroyers can just do feeding target data to the Des Moines, whilst they also just harass the other destroyers from outside their own range.
Yep.
This is quite literally a curb stomp of a frankly hilarious degree.
Yep.
So,
Would be pain to just send an Iowa in.
No, Newport News was still an all-gun cruiser. She was not part of the classes that were grabbed to become Bostons or 3T cruisers. She also was not of the
basically because
none of
the Des Moines were ever grabbed because they were far too valuable as what they were. The last generation of gun cruisers.
The last generation of gun cruisers and
significantly better than any other version of that ship that was ever.
Future plans notwithstanding, they were singularly the best heavy cruisers in history.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that's even really closely debatable. I don't really have any point.
The only ships that come close are the Alaskas, but again. The reason I say that is because I said come close is because the Alaskas are a different solution to the same problem. Whereas the Des Moines go for stick with the 8-inch gun, armor ourselves against the 8-inch gun, go for rate of fire and accuracy. The Alaskas go up gun, slightly bigger. Basically, the Alaskas and the Des Moines are two branches of the end of the heavy cruiser development line.
I don't agree. I don't class them as heavy cruisers.
I don't care what you class them as. The US did.
No, right. Even though yes, and I personally
they large cruisers.
I still don't see them more as battle cruisers, but I do not think it's really able to be justified that to put them in the same classification as the Des Moines at that time.
I mean,
they are a very different thing.
No, they're just a different solution to exactly the same problem. They're just the different branch at the end of the line.
Really?
I mean, what are they designed to do? They're designed to go out and kill a large numbers of less capable enemy cruisers. Same as the Des Moines. That's the whole point of the Alaskas.
But at that point you could say the town class is meant to do that. Going off that's not quite the great definition.
So, I'd like to point out that one of the big things that led to the Alaskas was not specifically the idea of we need to go and kill enemy heavy cruisers or cruisers in general. It was in part an exploration of, wow, the Deutschlands are pretty interesting. What if we did that, but better.
Yeah, there is also
That's why I
that.
would class them
Uh,
as large cruisers instead of heavy cruisers. Just
I
'cause
mean, you're
Yeah.
welcome to do that,
they're
but I will.
15,000 tons
No,
heavier than the
Fleet,
Des Moines.
The U.S. Navy also classified them as large cruisers, as because in every regard of their type, they were in a league of their own.
I mean,
Also,
I
also
still,
they go off.
No,
C-
I'm
also,
standing.
keep
I'm standing by
keep
my.
in mind, Fleet. Des Moines
you
use
could
CA
say-
as their designation.
Yes.
No, let me. This is the actual point. Des Moines use CA,
Hmm.
which is which is heavy cruiser.
I'm aware, Dragon. Thank
Alaska's use CB.
you. Still doesn't change the fact that they are a different branch at
Cruiser
the end of the line.
Like,
Cruiser
but
big, yes. But
they are classed as different things. They're
Yes,
not.
but
You
they
can't
are
really
still-
compare them as a heavy cruiser because they're not heavy cruisers.
Yes, I can. I absolutely
What?
can.
Well, no, right.
But at that point, Fleet, you might no. no,
given-
Wait, by that logic, they're fucking battle cruisers.
They're not.
Because they
But-
fit all the criteria of a battle cruiser.
No, they don't.
It doesn't matter
They
what
do?
they're designated, if they fit the category, they are one, so they're a battle cruiser.
And also, they do fit the categories of a battle cruiser. I'm afraid.
I mean, I will point out that
It's why I'm
this
just saying,
opinion is
like-
one echoed by Dr. Clark and Drax, so if I'm
Right.
wrong, so are
I
they.
would call them not battle cruise. Right, they might not be battle cruisers, but they're also not the same as a heavy cruiser.
They are just a bigger heavy cruiser.
But
In
they're
the same-
not, though.
Yes, they are.
When they have a different designed role, they're not.
They don't have a different design role, though. They're just
They
bigger cruisers.
do.
Fleet.
They do.
No, hold on. Fleet. What would you class the Invincibles as?
The Invincibles are large armored cruisers. The fact they became battle cruisers is something that we basically see as a development of the armored cruiser. It's the end.
This
of
is the
armored...
reason that
it's
I
the
like to
end-
make the comparison between the
it's
two
the end-
classes. Is
It's
that
the end of the armored cruiser line and the beginning of something new.
Yes.
However, unfortunately, in this case, we didn't get to see that because what would have followed the Alaskas was rendered obsolete by the passing of technology. So again, similar situation. They are still the end point, or one of two end points for the development of the American cruiser, that started with the ships of Washington, aka in particularly the Pensacola's. They are one of two end points for that line of development. The other is, of course, Des Moines.
Yes, and again, this isn't going to go anywhere, so there's no point really.
I gotta ask you.
US, like,
No, Fleet. So what you're telling me is that the Manitou class of World War One, the armored cruisers, by using your own logic, it's in the same ballpark as the Invincibles because they're both an outgrowth of the same thing.
What did you say, Fox?
They
Oh,
do
you
the
broke-
same
Minotaur,
job.
the Minotaur class cruiser.
The armored cruiser.
I think a more accurate comparison is probably Blucher.
No, but I know because that's in a different
No.
nation though.
Because
True. No, that's
Des
true.
Moines is the last of the heavy cruisers, which in this analogy are the armored cruisers,
Yeah.
and the Minotaur the last class of British armored cruiser.
Yeah. No, you.
However, the Invincibles are spun off that into their own thing.
Yeah, you probably.
do
Yeah,
like
It's a direct
Invincibles.
parallel to the Alaskas,
it is.
and the Alaskas are spun off into their own thing, so you can't compare them.
Yes, I can, because you've just reinforced my argument rather than making one of your own.
But no, what?
Because again,
the
The
Minotaur-
entire
the
argument is the
Minotaurs-
tech tree splits.
Yes, but that still doesn't mean that the design lineage didn't come from the same
And
starting
again,
point.
aren't
I don't,
you
I
all-
don't
no,
think
no,
we're-
no, I'm sorry, I'm
hold on.
sorry.
I don't think we're arguing design lineages here. We're arguing classifications.
I mean, I'm
Pass and
arguing.
roll.
I'm arguing for both.
Also, to be fair, Fleet, you've also argued in the past that it's whatever nation designates them as is what they are.
Well,
Correct.
Yeah, yes, that is true.
So, why are you saying that the Alaska's a heavy cruiser when the United States do not class it as a heavy cruiser?
Because, to be blunt, in this particular case, well,
Yeah.
I personally consider them heavy cruisers. The U.S. doesn't. As far as naval history is concerned, they are what the U.S. designates them as, large cruisers.
Either way, as
My-
I said, do we want to move on because this is going to keep going in
question. No.
circles?
I've got one more.
No, Foxo,
But-
I'm saying no.
Yeah.
Moving
Because
on.
also, because I need to.
Because I'm
quickly
getting
go off
annoyed
something.
now because this
I
is
need
this is becoming reductive. Moving
I'm
on.
going to also quickly slap Fleet in the face for something he said yesterday. The Gladiator class Star Destroyer is in no way a frigate.
It is. I'm sorry.
It is not.
It's too
It
small.
is 600 meters.
It doesn't deserve the title of Star Destroyer. It's a large
It
frigate.
said
That
it's
does
not a
this
frigate,
does
it's a
not
German
make-
frigate.
This does not make it.
Speaking
a
of
frigate.
frigates, what do we think of the Thaun class OPV of the Italian Navy? Those are the ones with the goofy double prow.
They're funny.
There's,
They're
it's got to be
very
there
funny.
for a reason,
They're
surely.
very funny.
I don't actually know it's
I
but it's gotta be there for a
believe,
reason.
if I recall correctly, part of the reason for it was like I can't remember specifically, but it was something to do with both a mix of seakeeping and speed enhancement or something. I will be honest, I'm not fully caught up on it, but they are very, very, very handy ships, if I'm honest.
So that was
So,
that
right.
was YouTube. This is
Just to
this-
quickly
just
compare this.
Discord.
Fleet is comparing a Gladiator to a Nebulon B or a Lancer being the same class of ship.
No, I'm comparing the Gladiator to a Magnificent class star frigate.
No, they're like the Magnificent isn't even really a frigate. They're not
Uh,
classed as frigate in most media.
It's a heavy frigate.
So heavy. Then what's a heavy frigate?
The Vindicator.
If you
would be-
really want to say that Home
the
1
Vin-
is described as a frigate.
The Vindicator would also be another good example of a heavy frigate.
No, it wouldn't. They are cruisers.
I don't like cruisers in the Star Wars parlance. I much prefer frigates.
That's not how this works. Like,
Knight
because at
Six-
that point, we might as well class Star Destroyers as frigates.
Well, they're ships of the line technically, but hey ho, who's
No, they're not.
third rates probably? Would be a more accurate description. Third or fourth rates.
Let us move on before we get into yet another argument over personal
Proof Fleet
semantics.
does not Proof Fleet does not understand Star Wars classifications even at the best
They
of
make
times.
no bloody
Yes.
sense. I just go with what makes sense to me.
It is, in fairness, they are bad.
They are bad, but Star Destroyer is not actually a class, it's just a designation of a ship line.
Knight 6831 asks,
Yeah.
why didn't ex-military C-94 Stratofreighters equipped with J-47s not retain them in civilian service? Well, probably down to the fact that by the time the C-97 Stratofreighters bowed out of service with the US military, they'd been worked so sodding hard that, those engines, it depends what happens to them post service with the military and what actual clientele took them on. But most of the time, it was either a one-for-one replacement with the same engines, more specifically more modern versions, or versions that weren't worn out from years of constant use with the United States Air Force, or replacement with turboprops or slightly different piston engines. Again, mostly for the same reasons. The engines they were sold with were a little bit worn out. Tiny bit.
Wait, so is this referring to the J-47 engine? Okay, because I'm just trying to see how many actually were given this conversion.
I think most retained the I'm not really familiar.
Later
I'm
designated KC-97L.
yeah, I'm
81 of them were eventually equipped with 2 of them on underwing pylons.
Oh, he's talking about for a second there. He had me going. See, this is why I don't know. Oh, in that case, then, but yeah, because no, it's just an extra cost. Why would you have the jet engines? You don't need them in a civilian role. It's just extra cost and extra maintenance money that you don't need to pay. Just stop, remove them, get rid of them, do other things with them. Just throw them away, sell them back to the U.S. Air Force. Just anything. Just don't keep those jet
I'm trying to
engines on
figure
your
out who
bomber.
actually used the KC-97L. I'm going to guess it's the Americans primarily, but
Yeah, and a lot of them were sold into civilian. A lot of K-97s were sold into civilian service, but again, all of them had the jet engines removed because again, added complexity.
yeah. So
See, Fleet is not an aviation expert.
no, but that's at least a reasonable thing, probably of why they did not keep them on.
Yes, I know some things, but not all the things. So, YouTube question. Again. CJ asks, what if the nuke at Crossroads was detonated 10 kilometers away from Trafalgar during the middle of the battle?
Goodbye, Trafalgar.
Actually, at 10 kilometers, that might be just enough for the ships to be battered.
For wooden
but survive.
ships?
Yeah, just enough.
Uh,
Yeah, at 10k for a water burst, that's just enough distance for the shockwave to rattle the ships, damage a lot of
Crossroads.
Was Crossbows fission or fusion?
Fission. It wasn't a hydrogen bomb. This is what I mean. At 10 kilometers away, the ships are going to be rattled. Some of them badly damaged, but I doubt you're going to see any sinkings.
So are we referring to are we referring to Able here or
We're referring
Baker?
we're referring to Able, the nuke that was dropped during.
Well, Baker was also dropped.
Well, one of the 2 fission bombs that were dropped during the Bikini Atoll test immediately after the Second World War.
Right, it's 21 kilotons, right?
Yeah. I'm just trying to work out the actual blast
right.
radius. We know all ships within basically 1,000, within 900 meters of it, were basically annihilated due to shockwave damage.
Let's see. Nuke map.
Able
So 10
was
kilometers.
Able was the one that was above ground,
Mm.
23 kilotons, with what was it? Ships in a
And Baker was underwater.
within 2,300, we'll say, yards of the epicenter of the explosion. The furthest ship from ground zero of Able was Saratoga at 2,265 yards, roughly 2 kilometers, and she was, I believe, barely seaworthy, like barely floating at that point. In fairness, it is Saratoga, who by that point is what, 25 years old, and has been worked nearly to death. She was on fire, both on deck and below. The fire was extinguished, and she was kept afloat for use in Baker. And I believe she sank during Baker.
Because just with this, 21 kiloton weapon, the thermal radiation effect, which is the third degree burns in its starting fires, is 12 km. So if those wooden ships are in range, then they're just going to catch fire.
Yeah.
And they're going to burn. And the crew's going to be crippled so they can't put the fire out.
Yeah, that means every ship's exploding. Every ship. Because that is going to cook off the black powder of every ship involved. Yeah, that just... Well, CJ's just prevented the Battle of Trafalgar. Okay.
And
So
a light blast damage goes out to 30 kilometers.
Yeah, that's it. They're done. That's it. Yeah, I think we've answered that one. Trafalgar is kill. Long live the time traveling hydrogen bomb. Knight6831 asks, question 1 for Foxo. I think you've got a fan, Foxo. How accurate is it to think the Royal Navy Kansen would give all the advanced aircraft, guns, radar, sonar, and weapons?
That's not how it works.
Actually, that feels like it should be 2 parts. So reread that again.
No. Right, no, that is all the question. How accurate is it to think the Royal Navy Kansen would give them all the advanced aircraft, guns, radar, sonar, and weaponry?
Woohoo!
I'm assuming this is referring to the Royal Navy giving the Kansen this. As said, that's not how this works.
I don't know.
Because the Royal Navy isn't actually the one giving these equipment. The Royal Navy is the
Not asking
Kansen
questions like this. Could you please go to a middle school
to their,
English?
to their faction. Yeah, so it is the
Okay.
Royal Navy giving these to the Royal Navy. Again, that's not how Kansen work. Technically speaking, the Kansen, if we're going off law, they are given what they had historically.
Stop
It's
thinking
just
a Kansen as ships.
Whereas in
They're
game,
functionally superheroes.
the Kansen are given whatever the commander wants to give them. This does mean you can give the Gangut class battleship, theoretically speaking, replace all its turrets with Yamato guns. Because that's how AL works. So, no, the Royal Navy wouldn't give their Kansen it. The Kansen have what they had when they were existing. And it's why when ships get retrofitted, you notice their rigging will change a lot, and they'll have different stuff. Take the C-class cruisers, Curlew, and what's her name? When they get refit, they go from having 6-inch guns to having 4-inch guns. Because they get the AA refit. To put it simply. Then there's, technically speaking, another type of modification, but that's very rare. There's a thing which happened with Savetsky Soyuz, and then technically rebuilds, but again, that's then just basically replacing one's rigging with a new version of the ship. It's like going from the Yorktown, it's going from USS Yorktown to the Essex Yorktown, for instance. You're not really changing these, you're overwriting their hull with a new one, but keep managing to keep the personality they've developed.
Yeah, that's essentially fuckery, and that's
Savetsky Soyuz is the
literal
more
magic.
the Savetsky Soyuz one's the more confusing one, honestly.
That's literal magic, though.
That one we genuinely have no clue.
Magic.
Basically. Moving on.
Magic. Yes. Yeah. Disciplinary Officer asks, would you categorize the Theon OPV as a frigate or
We did.
corvette? Again, to avoid going into it's what do the people who operate it class it as? Especially if we're talking modern warships, that's where I do put that in as a rule. What do the Italians class it as?
They class as an offshore patrol vessel.
Then it's an offshore patrol vessel. Because that's what it...
I think the main reason for this question is because the class itself is meant to replace a class of patrol frigate or light patrol frigate and a class of corvette simultaneously.
Yeah.
Hence, like the reason that they are given the actual designation multi-purpose offshore patrol vessel.
Yeah. I think they're dancing around wearing 5 different hats. So I think I think sticking to offshore patrol vessel works, given that they can do frigate rolls, corvette rolls, dancing across the hull rolls, flying up into space rolls, all them rolls, maybe even barrel rolls.
So I will push back on that a little bit because the main way that the preceding classes were used were as patrol ships. These are for patrolling territorial waters. These aren't meant to be engaging with a surface action group. They are meant to do things like, I don't know, piracy interdiction.
Yeah, but again,
generalized interdiction, and
is why
maintaining the EEC at sea.
Yeah, this is why I say, if the Italians say they're X, they're X.
Oh, God. Question 3 from Knight's going to be amusing.
Oh, no.
We're a bit off it, but I've just checked it,
billions
and it's
of
going to be
pounds.
amusing. And I think I know what one of the answers will be.
Fleet's not involved in this? Well, I am actually,
No.
aren't you?
You are the one running the show. Wait, despite you keep saying that, you keep, losing control of the show. No, you are still the one in control here.
If
We
I
still
am,
will
then
respect-
people don't listen to
We still mostly respect what you say.
9631 asks for Foxo, how accurate is it to think naval aircraft, radar, and anti-aircraft gunner development does not work with ship girls?
100%.
Okay, marvelous.
Historical naval development does.
As
no,
I
no.
keep
Wait,
saying,
wait.
Repeat last.
Right. How accurate is it to think naval aircraft, radar, anti-aircraft gunnery development does not work with ship girls?
So, I mean, the difference is that instead of having spicy radio waves, you can have spicy infrared waves.
Holy fuck, Sierra out of nowhere.
Hello, Sierra.
Good morning. I'm playing Battle Brothers, and I just saw someone talk about the Phoenix, and I got kind of pissed off.
Yeah, I see. They've actually technically left the server as well, so oh dear. But oh well.
Have they?
Yeah, team
Have
have
they?
left. Yep.
Lamau. All right, you
That's a
get to see a
ban.
ban live on air.
Also, Hood, please check bot command admins.
I was going to do that earlier, but I woke up late
But-
and
so-
then had to run out, and my leg hurts. So I will get to that in a short while.
Well, that's
So-
going to cause problems. 'Cause
It does
now,
gonna-
now,
does
now,
development
now I
work?
have to tell
Honestly,
Dr. Clark that Timu
good
was banned
question.
from the dry dock.
Yeah, but then you just explain. Well, no, you don't have to explain anything. You just point to what happened, and then
He
you're.
broke,
Then
he
you're
broke the rule, and when was told to do something, did not, and just kind of kept going.
so.
Anyway,
But anyway, going back to the actual question. Yeah, no, development doesn't really work. There is development from it, but it's a very weird development. Like,
I mean,
as
are
your
we
lane
going by,
text
like-
style is strange.
here's actually the better question. What type of ship girls are we talking about? Because there are three
Azure
types
Lane.
in particular. We're going with Azure Lane. Well,
Azure
the
Lane,
problem
primarily.
is that if you have, assuming basing off the technologies of some of the skins that they have, I'm gonna look on my phone, or actually no, I have a cosplay channel. Hold on, let me just ask my e-girl chat. Assuming some of the technologies for, like, for example, like smartphones and the like, 10-to-1 they have IR sensors, and the good thing about that is that, well, at least you're not gonna have the same amount of like a goofy range as, like, you know, TASM or whatever, or TLAM. I'm sure you can do something like, you know, like, hey, you know, I over the horizon thermal imaging and the like, which is probably what you're gonna be looking at for ship girls. I mean, the big thing is that radar and like radar returns wouldn't really work for ship girls, as they are. I mean, you can still you can do like a ground based thing, but it's going to be to the sense that it is, not as efficient as just like, say here, there's a big thermal signature that way.
Because
I
we
mean,
know
unless-
they do have modern tech. Like, we actively see them playing around on the most modern gadgets possible.
Hmm.
But their rigging doesn't represent this. But that's not surprising because they're meant to be the. It's very
The big-
weird.
The big thing would be the two Chinese destroyers. I forgot the name. They have ballistic missiles, so radar would be useful for that, because thermal imaging and thermal sensors there is short range for ballistic missile defense, which is
Yeah, they have Silkworm, I believe, is their missile.
that's not a ballistic missile.
Yeah.
No,
You're saying
as
it
in- no, I said like they actually have ballistic. It's not Silkworm. It's like a
no,
DF-21.
No, but the missile they actually use is Silkworm. It's SY-1.
Yes, it doesn't act like it though. That's why. I'm
No,
saying
it doesn't, but that's AL gameplay mechanics. The ones they are said to have, like, because they're on the retrofitted Russian destroyers.
I cast missile of the magic
They
kind.
have J-20s in the game apparently. So
Do they have it's true?
Let me
Yeah,
guess.
no,
Are they magically more stealthy than F-35s? Wait.
there are no F-35s
no.
in the game. They're just displays. So I assume that the Chinese government still exists.
No, it's they're skins for aircraft. They're not actual things.
Yeah, they've got. So, according to AL, they are using SY-1 and SY-1As.
They don't act like it, so I'm gonna treat it as
Yeah.
as the.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
and
you...
I just. You had me confused. I just had to go and double check, like, what do they actually use? Because you are right, they do not work like it at all.
But
Uh,
yes, for that specific context for ballistic missile defense, you kind of need radar. Unless you have like optical satellites for that kind of stuff, but I don't.
On the other hand, we don't have any Kansen currently that can counter missiles.
I mean, no, you can shoot it down
Can you?
with guns. Yeah.
I'm not involved in this.
I've not been in PvP against it, so I've not seen. But so then, do they just get classed as a weird form of aircraft? Oh God, I don't know that.
I mean, I'm
works.
Not
I-
not in game. This is just in general.
Well, yeah,
I'm
I
just
know.
looking in general. I don't know about in game.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out
Looking
how the in-game lore and stuff works, because technically speaking, there is no Kansen in-game that have anti-missile defenses.
Outside of like, I mean, in terms of gameplay mechanics, yes, but in terms of
but-
like actuality, you can't just shoot it down. Like guns.
Well, yeah, I
guns
guess
work.
if you use your secondaries and anti-aircraft guns, theoretically speaking, you could do so. But there's no
Main guns.
dedicated anti-ballistic missile currently, as in no ships with actual stuff like close-in weapon systems and such. Just
I mean, the closer
Shoot
if
the
you're
gun.
using close weapon systems with the ballistic,
there's
missile,
stuff
you're
going wrong
fucked.
already. Yeah, there's already stuff going truly
Close
wrong.
range ballistic missile is done with SM-6 for reference, at least within the U.S. Navy's doctrine, which should already tell you how fucked that is. But, yeah. Going back to the main prompt, yes, I do believe it will change in terms of, like, if you use ship girls, mainly with a focus rather on radar returns with thermal imaging.
Right. So Knight has actually gave a little bit more context. In regards to the question 1 and question 2, he's asking this because these weapons exist in their memory, so surely they should be able to summon them from memory. And also, as this because naval aircraft, radar, and anti-aircraft gunnery development, as we know, exist in the Kansans memory, so surely they should be able to summon this development from their memory as well.
I can remember a steam locomotive, doesn't mean
No.
I can build it.
And also, most of these ships don't know it because any ones that were scrapped will not have memories of it.
I mean,
Yeah.
New Jersey's there.
New Jersey would have memories, and a couple of others might. But
The ones that have memories are the ones that are really kooky.
Actually,
You're
hold
not
on.
going to tell me
when
that New
was Langley-
Jersey's sane.
I'm more thinking. I'm trying to remember what are the other ones that might have been kept around. Where's Langley 2? She's
What
semi.
Langley do
She's
have?
she's semi-sane. I'm just trying to figure out how long the second Langley class actually lived for, or second of the Langley names.
Actually, hold on. But that
That was.
is USS Boston in the game. I'm trying to remember. I only literally only.
Langley's an independence class like Ken.
Yeah, and so she wouldn't have left. From I can find.
I
Oh
believe.
god, she has a worse fate. She was sold to the French.
Rip. There is no Boston.
No, not like I can
sadly.
see.
There is, however, when I
Canberra?
find her, there's Northampton 2.
Yes.
The second, she's technically an Oregon City class heavy cruiser. However, the second USS Northampton became a different thing entirely.
Mm-hmm.
She became CLC-1 and became the
Sorry,
Command Light
wait a minute.
Cruiser.
So, where
Curse
was...
realization. What happens to USS Mississippi?
Gentlemen, can we focus forwards, please?
We can. Technically speaking, we're doing that. And Gloucester, right. Illustrious has the Gloucester Sea meteor in her memory, so she will be able to summon it to give it to her faction? No, because that's not how it works.
They are not ships functionally. They are superheroes.
They can't just take
Just
this
because
is from my
I-
rigging and give it to you.
Yeah, just because Iron Man, I don't know, can power his
Iron Man's not a good
armor.
example because Iron Man does
Iron Man
does
actually
everything
can sort
himself.
stuff out. Yeah.
Yeah,
If
but-
I
Roughly the
have
arc
used
reactor.
I have used firearms in the past. I can't just magically summon one because I used it in the past. I can't summon the knowledge of field stripping in L85 because I haven't done it in 15 years, give or take.
You used to be able to field strip L-85s?
Yes,
That...
I was in the ACF long enough to be able to do that. I can't do that anymore because I haven't done it in 15 odd years.
You take
The,
them
the,
apart,
the
it's
memories
hard
are still in
to
there, and if I
get
was given one, I could probably figure it out. It might take me an hour and a half because I'll have to figure it all out kinesthetically, but I could probably do it. It's not quite how it works, frankly.
Right, so where was...
I believe we're back at a Discord question.
Yes.
Yes.
Your typical officer asks, why didn't the Air Force fit or even try to fit Phoenix missiles on the F-15 and F-4 for the duration
No,
of the
I think we had
1970s and
I think we had a
80s?
separate conversation
At
about
least
Yes,
this.
there
until
was a
the
separate
AMRAAM was
conversation.
introduced, did the USN never share the text of the branches, or did the F-15's radar and electronic systems aren't even compatible with the Phoenix? No, the Phoenix is basically, it goes on the F-14, it's expensive as all buggery to build, and it gives capability only the US Navy at the time needs.
I was waiting for this.
I can hear Sierra cringing.
Why are you
physically.
booing me? I'm right!
Okay. Broad strokes here. The AM-54s developed the AM-47 and the large part of the AM-4 family. The big thing about that being that's a USAF project. So to broad strokes this again, the particular problem with the USAF when it comes to a development of the long range SAMs that would equip the F4, like the F4s, for example, is that the doctrine in which it would exist in doesn't normally exist. Well, especially with the refocus from Vietnam to like Europe, for example, in Avcent. The problem isn't insofar, mass bomber streams. Well, it still exists actually, but the Avcent sort of F-15s were primarily used for two things, being back raiding enemy airfields in East Germany, because that was a plan. That's why F-117s existed for doing Night Stalker stuff. But the surface, not the surface to air, the air to air missiles there for development was focused on bomber streams for the M4 family, because it's just a really long range missile. But the reason why the USAF never really picked it up is because by the point of really developing the F-15, the F-15 doesn't really have the capability or doesn't really want the capability for bomber stream interception, because there's a certain platform that exists called the F4 that could really do that. So why even bother? Like I think it's also just like a really common problem with the Cold War is that a lot of people assume, hey, in the 1980s, the only aircraft that the USAF ever used was the F4 or like the F-15. When up until the 90s, the primary interceptor of the US Air Force was actually just the F4. What's the quote again? Whenever you look at NATO battle tanks, don't assume it's Leopard 2 or Abrams. Assume it's Leopard 1. And then suddenly everything makes sense.
Yep.
But broad strokes, it's definitely there as an interception role. It just is certainly not something that the USAF primarily thought of, because their focus was with Avcent and sort of the apocalyptic war in Europe, rather than like Vietnam or like bomber streams of Tu-95s. The AN-54 particularly is both expensive because they never produced a lot of them, so that's part of the reason why it's expensive. The other reason why is because the sort of, let's just call it like AWG-9's capabilities is only exploited primarily with Phoenix, which goes to the USN primarily using the F4s, like the F-14s as sole interceptors rather than using like AWACS, which is what the F-15s are primarily going to be using in Avcent. But I do think it's certainly something they could have absolutely pursued and was about to, but just the threat perception of what the USAF was going to fight, which was a apocalyptic 30,000 people will die per day war in Europe, was not really conducive towards mass bomber streams, in which the supposed backfire streams would be, kind of bumbling down U.S. carrier groups for. But yeah, I do think it's a lot more complicated than that, especially with AM4 and how that worked out, and how Hughes kind of had a weird problem with figuring out what their missile was going to be. But I mean, I fully support, however, AIM-7 superiority because a certain company makes it.
Uh-huh.
Want to do next question?
Yes.
Yep. That. Right.
Where was I?
What are
I'll
you
find it in a second. Give me a minute. Flick's pulling triggers and pushing buttons. There we go. Question 3 from Knight on YouTube, I think.
Told you. This one is fun.
For Foxo, would you want to be the Azure Lane commander if the perks were you get to see new places and work with famous ships and never built ones to life, but with the downsides of paperwork, dealing with sirens and anti-chorus, and your cancer want to sleep with you? I'm not.
Before she says anything, all I'm going to mention is Shinano.
I'm not involved in this.
So,
Yes, I mean, I get better pay, I get cute girls, and I already do most of that anyway.
actually, do I get worse pay if I be a commander? Wait a minute.
I'm not involved in this.
Right.
Hold on, let me do the calculations.
Right. So there's a real quick and easy way to cheat these questions, and usually if it means Foxo gets to interact with Shinano. Musashi to a lesser degree, but basically, if they are fluffy fox girls, you'll already have her wanting to do it.
The only problem
Yeah, I
is
get less-
the only problem is she'll miss her dragon.
Yeah, technically, I'll probably
She's
get
got
less
right.
pay if I be a navy commander.
Right, Fleet,
I'm not doing that shit.
I'm all well and good. Shinano, on the other hand, for Foxo, is something entirely different.
I've never seen a man willingly give away his girlfriend so easily.
See,
It's more of a case of I know I can't stop her in that situation. And I personally like living for the moment.
does she know how to make a grilled cheese?
Shinano? Maybe not, but the rest of the Kansen do.
I have no
A
desire.
good number of the Kansen do. Like, we know what's it called? Nevada, for instance, does very good breakfasts.
I have no desire for a grilled cheese.
But I do. I like my grilled cheese. It's like the one
Yeah,
good thing to come
I
from
don't-
America.
Honestly, the biggest thing would be the fact that you have to deal with Antichias, and that means he'll just be annoying. Also, that is a lot of paperwork, but at least you can use your secretaryships on
Paperwork?
occasion to do
I
stuff.
feel like paperwork's an overdue meme because it's just like, what the fuck? Where is your ops staff? Why is
you
the
don't have
commander
it.
doing the paper?
Yeah, you don't have it. Like,
Where is
Remember-
your staff?
remember, Naval HQ is actively trying to sabotage the commander half the time. Like, for
I
some
forgot 'cause-
reason, humanity wants themselves to die. Like,
I forgot. No, it's like the Kansai collection beam is like we're trading pumpkins for a fucking prototyped like Type 97 bomber.
What the fuck?
yeah,
Can we
let's go.
move on, please, before Fleet loses?
you
No, it's-
already
it's-
had. Yeah.
Look,
Yes.
look. There were 2 marbles, then there were 1.5. There's now 1 3/4.
I'm just saying,
There's
it is
now-
a genuine question. Is like, would you take that commission? Because like,
Relatively
me
speaking, I
perso-
probably would actually take it, but
No, thank you. I'm not. There's not enough money in the world to make me take that job.
honestly, it's not the money that's more interesting to me. It's the ships.
Problem is, Foxo, Clark's not here yet.
Yes, like she knows that. Like she asked it early, so that you actually got to the question.
Well, I'm doing rather well
don't know.
tonight.
I don't know if it's worth. I don't like
Right,
me
also-
personally. I don't know if I have the. I don't know if like my father instincts are enough to really deal with being a commander.
Right, considering the fact that I also am currently unemployed, employment is a very good option. Admittedly, not
Oh,
like
wait,
I'll
that's
be able to
right, I'm
use this money in
unemployed.
places. Yes, Fleet. Like technically speaking, for us who are unemployed, this is kind
Money.
of just a win. It's an annoying win, but it is a win nonetheless.
Money.
Okay, but to be
Yeah,
fair, it's also
but let's be real. Being doted on is fun.
Depends on
I
who's
don't-
doing the doting.
yeah. I
I've
don't
never.
know about that one.
I've
Looks at Rune and Taiho.
I've never been fond.
At least you're safe with those two.
I mean, I've
Everyone
never,
else
been,
is dead.
I've never been fond
I
of
wanna
being
be a
overly.
commander, just shoot them.
I've never been fond of being overly pampered. I feel a little.
If anything, Fox, I know the best situation to deal with that. I go and ask the Royal Navy for help. Because their maid corps is ludicrously powerful.
Okay, I'm done. Moving on.
Right.
That
No,
that, that,
'cause to
sentence,
Fleet explain,
that sentence.
all the Royal Navy,
that
most of them the
sentence
Royal Navy
alone
cruisers
is
serve as
death
the maids for Her
sentence
Majesty the Queen.
I'm
Her Ma-
sorry,
Her Majesty,
Sheffield is
HMS Queen Elizabeth.
007,
Okay.
but a maid.
All right, that's it. That sentence alone is worthy of
And
death
then,
by-
of course, you've got the Royal. Then, of course, you've got Royal Knight Commander of King George.
Oh, for the
You've
love
got
of...
Vanguard, who is one of the another Knight Commander.
Oh, for the love of fucking
Like,
God, kill me.
The
now.
royal family structure in AL is fascinating.
I really don't want to think about it. I really don't want to fucking think about it. Please stop making
By the way,
me
Knight,
think
I'm pretty
about
sure
it.
you asked that 6-inch one already, didn't you? Isn't that further up? Or was it yeah, you did. In regard to that, no.
So,
Yeah, but again, that's
so-
not how that. Again,
Come
like,
on.
that's not how ship girls work.
Come
No, sorry,
on,
it's just
we've-
quickly answering because we might put this in the chat. Again, just because the ship girls have this on their rigging does not mean they can take it off and give it to the actual nations. It's just not how it works, and they also don't understand how it works. Like, there's the cognitive dissonance between how these two aspects work. But yes, moving on, Fleet.
So,
Gunner officer, I think.
again?
Think so.
Oh,
Don't worry, you go 3 more questions without another gunnery officer after this one.
yay! So that was one for Clark, so Clark's not here yet, so... You typically have to ask thoughts on the USAF retiring the E8 J-Stars. Could the USAF find a capable replacement? Could they cope with the loss of this asset? What the fuck is an E8 J-Star?
I mean, like ground radar particularly is unless you're doing J-Stars is the Joint Surveillance Tactical Air Radar system. I don't know, especially with it makes sense in the 1980s context where you can't just like say, hey, div cav or div cab, send out an MQ7 or like an MQ1 to go check out the area. I don't think it needs to. The surveillance mission, especially for divisional and even core level stuff, is not a manned asset at a certain point, especially with aerial surveillance. Man, you could do so much fucking shit with the amount of random ass drones that you could do with div and like core level stuff.
And I mean,
Like,
can't a lot of the radar work that the E8 used to do be done by the more modern versions of E3 if they need aerial radar?
Not really. J-Stars particularly is for battle management stuff for ground vehicles. Not really something you really want to do with the E3s. They're really focused on more, let's call it low level flying stuff. You can do it with E3, but E3s are primarily going to be used for battle management of the airborne systems rather than battle management of ground systems, for example. But yes, it was a particularly great asset during Desert Storm. Do you know what you can do with it nowadays? It's called the MQ1.
Yep, that makes sense.
Remember,
In fact-
Desert Storm was 30 years ago.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it's an
There you are.
ancient ass battle.
Yeah.
It's like when people think of what planes were 50 years ago versus what they actually are 50 years ago.
Yep. There you go. 1981
Next.
asks, Huzzah! And a
To-
question
to
that's not
actually-
about Azul
Wait,
Lane.
Wait one,
wait,
to really round out the rest of the question, yes, they can cope with that loss of asset because there are other assets that are perfectly suited to step into that role. Multiple, in fact, assets that can step into the role. Welcome, Dr. Clark.
Hello, Alex.
Good evening, Clark.
I have to say,
Oh,
It's got there we go.
Foxo, how are you feeling? Because I'm getting messages from several people checking in on you. So I've been told to ask how you're feeling.
Let's
yeah.
leave that. Considering this is an open channel which is being broadcast to the world, and I
She was
also
actively
and
explaining
I
what was
also
happening.
know.
I am not asking. I know I am specifically not asking for details. I'm just asking if Foxo's okay.
Don't worry, Clark. She's had at least 4 other people who I know ask if she's okay.
Have you asked if she's
I-
okay?
That's good because I've got my mother threatening to come in and ask on air. So this is the thing: is you can say it's not public information to me on air. You can't say if she comes in because she's worried. Because Dan called her to check in.
Oh, yes, right.
This is all
we're only-
down
I'm
to-
not gonna drop dead. I'm going to the doctors.
This is all.
That's
I can't.
good.
I can't
Alright.
believe.
Also,
I can't
just realised,
believe,
Foxo, it's a bit of a shame Sol isn't done yet, is he?
No,
I can't believe.
Do you want to tease
this
Fleet
whole-
with it, or...?
I can't.
I am going to get more coffee because I will need more caffeine for the next 10 minutes.
I can't believe that this whole situation, where we are right now, and what I'm about to announce, literally all stem from, hey, Dr. Clark, do you want to discuss a timeline where the Imperial German Navy rocks up in Wilhelmshaven in the 1st of January 1939?
Oh, you... Right,
And
Fleet.
that's where we are now.
Fleet, I've had the more fun one. So, a friend of mine has been working out the explosive mass calculations of ship detonations.
Yes.
And just how much explosive forces. They had the fun of trying to work this out for HMS Barham the other day,
Uh-huh.
which includes boiler explosions, potentially.
Yeah.
Do you know how fun it is trying to calculate the explosive force based off a boiler?
Yes.
It's not fun. So for about 6 hours, there's constant back and forth between people. Well, what about this? And just going slowly and slowly more mad of trying to figure out all the calculations.
Yeah, this happens on a shockingly regular basis.
So it's not surprising, Fleet, that your random questions lead to very random situations.
Oh,
Do you
yes.
realise there's actually a book of formulas which has a formula in it?
I think that's
over
what
my
they.
box over there, which would work that out for you. Do you just literally just plug in the numbers?
I think that's what they might have found stuff about that at some point, but like at the time, no, they did. I don't think if they did or did not. I know I certainly didn't.
Either way, seeing as we have
Next
Dr. Clark
question.
here, 5 people online and 30 people here, I have an announcement to make, seeing as we're at the height of Ramblings. Coming soon to a Ramblings area near you on the 2nd of December, which is precisely 1 to 3 weeks from now, at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I think is probably when
Anyone
we'll
else get real Top Gear vibes from that?
Yeah.
when we get cracking. I am pleased to present something that has been long in the planning, but which I am now going to officially announce. I would like to invite everyone who is a member of the Ramblings audience, and those who are not, to the Drake's Drum Dreadnought Dissection, a dive into the alternate ships of the Drake's Drum series of books, all of those that are currently available to us, featuring myself, Desert Foxo, Dragon 2000, Dr. Alex Clark, Drakinifel, and other special guests.
I really need to
Those
read that
special,
second book.
the special guests could get very scary. There's at least one of them who is obsessed with things like gunnery, who is already diving into it
Oh, so
with
have
much
they
gusto.
So have they realised that for some reason throughout Drake's Drum, the British only ever used the 16-inch guns, even though they're technically allowed 16.5-inch guns according to the treaty? Like,
Yes, they have. Yes,
'Cause that's-
they have.
I think that's going to introduce some choice comments.
Judging by the phone conversation I was having at far too frigging early this morning when I was doing brew ships till, and I had people coming around to fix doors and windows today, and then I'm just getting everything sorted quietly, happily, and my phone goes. They've gone on the end of the voice going, "Do you realise what's written in this?"
Oh boy, that's going to be
Who
interesting.
was it?
Yeah.
Send me a DM. Who
No, no.
was it? Send me a DM. I need to know
Oh,
who
I
that
think it's going to
was.
be more amusing if you. I think it's going to be more amusing if you don't know Fleet.
Oh no, Dragon! I have a list. I know who could
I
potentially
know you.
be.
Do. No, I'm more meaning it'll be more amusing for you to figure out who it's going. Have you based off that comment?
Well, Chandlord, it's an
Also, by the way,
invitation to
Fleet-
be
I
part
think-
of the. The invitation is
I
to be
think
part
we let-
of the
we let them-
audience.
Yeah, basically,
I
Fleet's
think we
inviting
let
anyone
them-
to listen
we-
in.
I think we let them reveal themselves in person when they get on the video.
I think that is the best.
Oh no! I
Because, trust me,
wanted to.
They are going to be revealing themselves.
Oh no! I have.
Judging by the level of earache I still have and ringing in my ears,
I don't.
it will be revealed.
I don't doubt that, but I would like to know over DMs
So
right
it's someone
now.
who's got a good pair. So it's someone who's got a good
comedic
pair of
effect.
lungs. No, Fleet. I think it's better if you don't know.
No,
You might know they might be right. Fleet.
no,
Fleet,
I
let me
really
explain.
would like to
Let me
know.
explain.
I gotta get this shit
No,
together.
no, I've got to explain because even if you know that they might be there, for them to be the person who then bellows of "Have you seen what's in this?" at the time, it's far more interesting because you get the genuine shock effect.
Dragon, I'm trying to organize this thing. Do you know how long I've been getting this thing together? I have been working at this
Yes,
for
ever
nearly
since I-
half a year
yeah.
now, and I am
ever
not
since
leaving
basically we
anything.
started bugging you about Drake's Drum, and you
And-
started going, "Oh
and I
God,
am
what am
not-
I reading?"
And I am not leaving this the chance. So, Dr. Clark, would you please DM?
Or don't.
DM now, please. I am trying
Or
to keep
keep
things
teasing it.
organized.
But
So,
also, by the way,
Dragon,
once
it
again,
is far too-
people are pointing out that once again, unfortunately, you have failed at mathematics. You said it's 3 weeks. It's actually 2.
No, this Monday, next Monday, the Monday after, 3.
But technically, it's in 2 weeks' time.
That's not this the bloody debate again. I bashed you
This
over the
is
head
how
with facts
time
and logic
works,
last
Fleet.
time.
Gods no, Benno. I don't even want to
Ugh.
look at that.
Drake's
Honestly, the worst. Honestly, no. Aircraft's not the worst. The
Well, thing
worst
is-
one The worst is looking at
I'm
the
just-
tanks.
Well, the thing is, Drakestrom
I'm
aircraft is
wondering-
fairly simple. Drakestrom aircraft will be fairly simple to put together. I just need Rex's hangar for that, and that's fairly
Yes.
easy. And of course, I'll bring Dragon along for that one. That'll be fairly straightforward. Tanks as well, I'll just go and grab the Chieftain.
Yeah, probably your best bet.
Since-
Because
since-
Jagdpanzer E100 exists.
Since this is something that I can do, apparently, I can actually go and grab people, provided I have lines of communication to them. It's only for certain
I
special...
have someone else to suggest as well as the chieftain. I have. There's a gentleman I know who has looked at the Drakestrom sort of area of tanks, and won't give you his name, but I'll give you his background. He worked in tanks for for the British Army, and he's now an advisor to the Israeli Army on tank design and procurement,
Hmm.
and lives in Israel, and he really does know his stuff. Really, really does know his tank design and his tank.
Just so people are aware, I am in discussions with the Chieftain. It may not be till next year that we get him for ramblings. I asked him a couple of weeks ago. He asked me to get back to him at end of November, beginning of December. So I'm gonna
Seems
do
reasonable.
that. I'm gonna do that when we get to probably November 30th, and then we'll see what he says. So it may not be till next year when Chieftain and next appears on
Yeah,
ramblings.
Who would have guessed these things require organising?
There's a
Yeah,
lot-
they take time.
There's a lot more goes
Okay,
on here than
I'm
you
doing
people
the-
realise.
It's like the Two Historians series.
When do I get to feature?
Which now, that'll make it 3. So no.
No, but thing is, two historians is Dr. Clark and other historian, which therefore means I could potentially feature in that one.
Potential. Oh God.
You
See
could
that.
you could potentially be coming along. But it looks like Drac will have to be making a second appointment because of the sheer volume of questions he's getting on his channel and my channel about the stuff we discussed in it and us needing to discuss more. Apparently someone, and I'm not allowed to name names, but there is someone who's going into almost every single video he produces and going, when are you going to talk with Dr. Clark about the Congo class? When are you going to talk with Dr. Clark about the Congo class?
it's
And
about
might
the
be
whole-
spamming comments.
Is
on
this
this
about the
subject.
whole?
I'm not suggesting this or encouraging this at all, but it might be having a positive effect for what they want. I'm just putting it out there.
Oh God.
To be
Dear.
fair, considering how well the
And
first
also-
one went,
What could possibly go wrong?
after all the hearing about the gloriousness of a navalized tornado, and then seeing Drax's face drop at the idea.
You know, it's
But then how he also
nice-
sort of considers it and sort of went, but actually,
you know something.
why would you do it? But it's doable.
You know something. It's
yeah.
nice.
Dragon?
It's nice to know that I'm not the only one who can make Drax's face do an impression of a brick hitting the floor.
Dragon.
Yeah.
You remember that commission I'm getting from Sol next month?
Oh yes.
Oh no.
No, this one's just a pretty cool one.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Nothing to do with me. Thank God. Yeah.
So is anyone here
No.
familiar with the early coloured white dwarf?
Yes, vaguely.
That art style for the early Warhammer stuff. But a tornado flying off Hermes at the Falkland War.
Oh, for the love of Mike, it never ends.
Well, yes, it does.
Not for me, it doesn't.
Like, Fleet, you underestimate the lengths Foxo will go to for a meme.
I don't.
But
doubt
anyway,
it.
do you want to grab the next question?
Yes.
Just
I've
get
been
back
trying to
on
get to
track.
that.
How could anyone underestimate the lengths that Foxo will go to for a meme?
Knight six
So yes,
eight.
you said it was a night question.
Yes, and it's a good one actually. Knight 6831 asks if the Tiger class light cruisers were 10,680 to 12,370 tons with 6-inch guns, 8 3-inch guns, would they be able to get 2 quad Seacat SAM launchers without losing 2 76mm guns? No. You may be looking at losing 4 actually. Just to give
2 quad Seacat launchers.
yeah. You may be looking at losing
I'm
4.
back.
You may
How many
you-
6-inch guns has it got again?
8.
6. It's
8.
What?
Presumably,
What?
since it's the Tigers, it'll
What?
be
No.
it'll be
Oh yeah, 876.
Four.
No, he
sorry,
said
yeah,
town
yeah.
class.
no Tigers.
Yeah, no, Tiger.
I said
If a
tank
Tiger,
Tigers.
it's Tiger. Tiger light cruisers.
If they have
Basically-
six 6-inch guns, so 3 twins, presumably 2 super firing forward, a single, and then a twin turret aft. 8 76mm guns, so presumably that's 1 super firing aft, and then the remaining. Ooh, hang on, that leaves you with That leaves you with 3 twins to put.
That doesn't
somewhere.
make that doesn't make sense. It would have to be 5. It would have to be 5 twins or
Yeah.
3 twins for 76 mil.
Unless
So,
knights-
in that-
unless we have 2 singles, which we could in theory do.
If we have the 2 singles, then you replace the 2 single mounts with the Sea Cats.
I mean, why would you? I mean,
Because
why-
weight-wise,
I mean,
you might as well keep the doubles and then you get rid of singles.
I mean, why would you even put?
So I
Seacats
presume that you
in
are
the
definitely
first place?
referring to the 76 that's found on the Tigers, and not referring to something
Yeah,
like
which is the
Ottomalaris
which are twins.
Yeah.
So basically, if you got, it would have to be a case of, if you have 4 in that scenario, then you have what, 2 wing and 1 super firing super firing even higher forward and 1 super firing aft. So you have a diamond arrangement of them.
Yeah, basically. At that point, then you get rid of your side launchers for Seacat. I mean, to be fair though, it is Seacat.
Yeah.
Yeah, one.
Although-
Well, yeah, 1 fore, 1 aft. and
Although,
1 wing per
honestly-
side.
Yeah, it's
Why?
Oh, it's just-
Why replace a perfectly good twin 6-inch rapid fire mount, which is actually fairly accurate, with bloody Seacat?
twin 3-inch.
No, he's suggesting replacing the
Twin 3-inch.
3-inch.
No,
Like
I
the
know.
6-inch
No,
Yeah.
no, but even so, why replace a perfectly
Also-
good fully automatic?
Like, just a quick question. Would this fit on like 12,800 tons?
Yes, absolutely.
Well,
Yes.
because you're adding an extra main battery for 1 with
Ye-
the ammunition, and then the extra main battery, the 2 extra of the twin turrets.
No,
Plus probably-
the only thing extra here is an extra twin main. That's literally it.
No, there's also twin. There's also extra. What's it called 3-inch.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, because the Tigers only had 3 twins,
Well,
so
we've got
there
a
is.
fourth.
So there's now a 4th one coming in. So there's at least 1 extra 3-inch, which admittedly I don't know how heavy that mount is off the top of my head, but so I guess then if you say it's possible, I'll believe you. I'll be honest.
I don't see any reason why it would
Yeah.
be, given the Tigers aren't the
Mm.
biggest cruisers in the world.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're already sitting at around 11,700 tons.
Yeah, it's one
Which
of
I was
those.
just wondering
It's
if you
one
meant
of those
that, yeah.
things where you'd have to rework the design calculations, and maybe some other things would have to be like you could get a Tiger on that tonnage, but it would be a very different ship.
Honestly, I think it could be a very pretty looking ship.
Mm.
It would almost be like basically a modern Arethusa, almost in
Yeah,
terms of certain aspects.
What Nightstone has said is it's 1 extra.
1 extra,
Yeah,
6
1
and
extra 3-inch. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they were about. So you're talking at. Yeah, so you're talking standard instead of full load there, right?
Standard space. Yeah, standard
right.
space. But nice way. Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to get that. But actually, I'm thinking that for that displacement, that's a bit underarmed. What I would be doing in that displacement is I'd probably be going for a pair of wing 3-inch, 2 pairs of 3-inch on each wing, and 1 3-inch aft in the X mount, and I would probably replace the 2 aft wing 3-inch mounts with the Seacat launchers, and I'd keep the 2 pair forward and the single one in the X position aft, and then I've still got good 3-inch coverage, but I've now got Seacat as well, which means I present any attacker with an extra problem.
Yes.
That's the thing. I've still got full coverage by my 3-inch,
Yeah.
but I've now presented any attacker with a. Okay, you now have a problem. I have both 3-inch, which will kill you if you get below this height, and I have Seacat, which might kill you if you try coming over me at that height.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But Seacat is a subpar system at the best of times.
But it's what you have
Yes,
to work
but
with.
Seacat also comes in with a land attack variant.
I know. I hate to think about it. I'd rather not think about it.
And technically also an anti-ship variant.
Sorry,
What did
Ow.
you just see?
Yeah.
a meme that I can't post in the
Right.
server.
I see. I didn't know if you were laughing at the whole point of one of the
No,
questions about favourite
I
ice cream flavour.
No,
Oh.
I said my meme, then said my actual thing, and I'm going to post this in Fox's server memes
Right. Okay.
because I can't post that in this server.
The server to which I have no
Anyway, yeah.
access. But never mind.
Oh, I see. I see why. Yeah, anyway, moving on.
Boo!
Yeah.
In the nicest way, you do never complain about not having access to servers. If you're invited, you enjoy the access. If you're not being invited, it is not needed for you to know and therefore enjoy it.
Who on earth said I was
But it is
complaining? I'm not
You
complaining.
just did. That's what you just did.
No, I stated fact.
Because otherwise, why bring it up?
Because it's a fact. I don't mind.
It was very passive
If
aggressive.
you weren't complaining, you wouldn't bring it up. You need to work this out, this emotion. It's coming out as unrequited love for the host and random sort of subtext aggression at your friends. It's not good for you.
Oh, if
As someone who is probably the closest to a psychology major in this channel, yeah, that.
yeah.
So, Fleet, I'm going to throw you the bone. Do you want to move on?
Yes, I do. Before I start getting angry. Not at anyone in particular, but just
I said, moving on. Moving on.
Brackman
Don't
asked,
make me
would
get
you...
some
But isn't the
Stormtroopers to help
truth that rather like the Hulk, you're always angry, and that explains the love for the
I
host?
didn't used to be. Until a certain event that some people in the panel know about happened. That utterly shattered.
Fleet, you need to narrow it down a bit. There's quite a few of these.
The only
Anyway,
one that actually
moving
matters.
on.
I'd rather we move on.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
think the
let's
next
move on.
question's fun. If it's what I think. Fleet?
Yes. Do
Wait.
you think this battle? Do you think this? Do you think that the fleet carrier is usable design? Well, first of all, that's not a fleet carrier. That is a Tonfolk.
That's a Ton Falk.
Tonfolk.
Yeah.
Tonfolk.
Oh, we're
Tonfolk.
Right, it's a question, right?
Yeah.
We're back to Star Wars.
Tonfolk
So,
is
what it
the
actually
lovely
suggests-
imperial box that loves
That's
you.
not what it's referring to, Fleet. That's just the image it posted. Use it right. Well, you'll actually need to read the image, Fleet.
Oh.
We have the escort carrier, 500 meters, 3,505 crew with an additional 800 troops, 72 starfighters and 6 shuttles with an X1 hyperdrive. I don't think those stats are actually accurate, but we'll. come
It's
back to that
actually it's
later.
not that far. It's not that far.
Not
off.
far up, but I don't think they're fully accurate. What would a fleet carrier look like for the Imperials between Episode 4 to 6? In World War II, the differences in aircraft complement between fleet carriers and light carriers / escort carriers was about 4 times. Yesn't. The difference between light and escort carriers was speed. Light carriers were fast enough to stick with the main fleets, whilst escort carriers were for convoy and invasion operations. Using that information, the ship would be anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 meters. 2,000. They put a random thing in there for whatever reason. An X2 hyperdrive. What?
Class 2. Whenever it's an X, it means class.
That's not how that works, though.
It's
We'll
not,
come
but
back to that.
Yeah.
I think the crew would have to be in the 21,000 range. With 20, they put
What?
commas in places that aren't. I don't know if they mean 24,000 troops and 24 shuttles or 2,400 troops. Finally, I think
Where
the
is
ship would
this
have 5
question?
wings.
I'll
It is
say,
in Theatre
I'll
at Sea. It
link
is
it.
quite far up. It was posted almost 2 hours ago.
Brackman's just linked it in the chat.
Thank you, Brackman.
Thank you, Brackman.
Thoughts and opinions. Readily accessible or pulling from top of head classifications would probably be the closest. Is the Triumph, which was a New Republic class fleet carrier. You could argue to an extent that the oh fuck, I can't remember the name now. The Invisible Hand.
Oh, Providence.
Providence, thank you. The Providences could classify, could. Very big quotations in could there.
Mhm.
To a lesser extent, the Lucra Hulks, and to an even lesser extent, Star Destroyers as well.
I can't find
The
this
only
Triumph
real-
class.
It's hold on. It's on the same chassis, I believe, as the Nebula.
Are you not referring to the Endurance?
Yeah, he is referring to the Endurance. That's exactly what he's referring to.
Oh, maybe yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the Endurance is the New Republic fleet carrier.
Which one was the Triumph? Oh, the Triumph was apparently a battle cruiser.
Well, because yeah, the Endurance is actually even way smaller than it's referring to. But anyway, quickly, I'll get back to that in a moment.
Yeah, we'll come back to that later. There are some issues with this post, in the
There's a
sense
lot of
that
issues.
in the sense that like half this information is incorrect
So,
and
I have actually
personal speculation at best.
I have checked. So first of all, you know that first sentence of what the escort carrier is, the Tonfalk? That is actually correct. The Tonfalk information is 1-for-1 correct for the current accepted standard.
Okay. I
So-
wasn't sure if my main thing was mostly the number of troops in the crew. I thought it was substantially less crew.
Crew
I knew
is
that they had
standard
up to
operating.
72 starfighters with shuttles and a class 1 hyperdrive. I will also point out that the main thing that comes to hyperdrive classes is the accepted canon for that is a class 1 hyperdrive will get you to a given system in 1 time speed, if you want to think of it that way. A class 2 will get you there in twice the time. Class 3, 3 times as long.
Yeah.
It progressively gets down from there. It's why in the expanded universe, a Terminus class destroyer, a ship about the size of, say, a Victory class Star Destroyer, with a Type 5 hyper or 0.5 hyperdrive was a super weapon.
Yeah, it's why the Acclamator is regarded as so good, because the Acclamator in canon has a class 0.5 hyperdrive.
Which is insane for what is essentially a space amphibious assault ship.
not, though. The Acclamator was also meant to be the frontline cruiser.
It's so funny. Anyway,
Yes. So, and yeah, crew is correct. It's countering crew and gunners as the same. It's also counting troops and pilots as the same thing for the 800 stat. Also,
weird.
right, I have a lot of problems with its idea of how big this fleet carrier should be in general, and its other capability, let alone its complement of starfighters. Also, let alone that it's classing wings of starfighters as a single wing is 72 fighters per wing, when on average in Star Wars a wing of fighters is 12 for command and control capability.
So
That's
I think what they've
Yes, it's just a squadron. Yeah, no.
I
But
think
they-
what
I
they've
think, I think this basically comes down to, once again, science fiction writers don't understand numbers.
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out what they've effectively done is make a somehow bigger in terms of fighter complement, yet lesser in terms of crew complement, Secutor.
Mm.
The Secutor is 2,200 meters long. The Secutor has something like 15 heavy turbo lasers, 15 light turbo lasers, quote unquote battleship ion cannons, which I detest as a classification of systems. They have the actual crew for both officers, pilots, and enlisted personnel is 40,000 people aboard a Secutor, with space for up to 14,000 ground troops. Would you like to know how many dedicated starfighters that a Secutor will field? 144.
Just for those in chat who can't be bothered to Google it, this is what a Secutor class looks like.
I would like to point out that the Secutor is also a fantastic platform.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
When you want to look at like actual Star Wars fleet carriers, you'll look at the Endurance, you'll look at the Secutor. You can argue for the Providence, and you can argue for the Lucrehulk.
Oh, I mean,
Right.
the original favourite Lucrehulk is actually closer to a super carrier, given how much capability it offers.
Well, no, it's not. It's not. The original flavor Lucer Hulk is a gigantic cargo ship that someone realized, well, what if we take the cargo out and put fighters in?
I'm talking
Yeah,
about the Lucrehulk carriers built by the Confederacy
That's-
during the
Yeah,
war.
they were still based off a cargo ship.
I know that.
However, what this person has effectively done is forget that, you know, this kind of thing already exists and is perfectly serviceable.
Now, I do at least have one other thing I would throw up as a possibility of an interesting ship, but this is going beyond their scale, and this is because personal bias of mine. It is a fan creation, but I think it is a very good one. Sitting at a length of 3,500 meters is the Impelor class fleet carrier,
I knew we were going to go to Ansel Hisao.
which it has a class 2.5 hyperdrive because it's bloody huge and it's not that easy to get it going quickly. It has all of the weaponry you want for a ship of this scale. On the other hand, it has a capacity of 2,000 fighters because of the sheer internal volume. Now, also keep in mind these 2,000 fighters will not all be in actual assembled configuration. It's based off the Compellor class battlecruiser Brackman. It kind of is basically, what if we take out some of the extra armor, put in repair facilities, command and control facilities, and all the hangar capacity we need. On the other hand, the one thing I disagree with is apparently that the Impeller only has a crew of 8,000. I would say that needs to be a lot higher. A hell of a lot higher, at least probably about
Why?
10 times. Because of how Star Wars systems work.
Why?
Ships in Star Wars run extremely crew heavy for basically no reason.
So if it's
Technically, a droid rebellion that made everyone
Yes,
scared of
there
that
was.
sort of stuff.
So keep in mind, for having 2,000, even assuming it's only got 1,000 fighters assembled, because apparently it can launch that many, having even 1,000 fighter pilots, this isn't even including its hundreds of guns, which how I wish they were properly controlled. That's the wrong thing. Because keep in mind, as I said,
Nothing happens.
so the Secutor class, which is already a smaller ship, which only carries 144 fighters, is sitting at 40,000 crew. Now, technically speaking, yes, you probably could get the numbers down. I'll be honest, I wish I knew actually how much crew this would properly require and could give you an actual reasonable number. Because I know sci-fis are very awkward with this.
I feel like we're
Really
kind of hammering this one home, gentlemen.
Well, it's actually an interesting question.
It
To a
is, but I do.
And
But
you can discuss aspects of
Yes.
it.
So,
So,
YouTube.
as I said, I don't
question.
actually. It's why I don't actually know if it would be or not in terms of crew complement.
But
But there are options.
1971 asks, would a 6-twin 6-inch gun 1947 Minotaur class be something the Royal Navy would want? They would absolutely want it in 1947. It'd be a great way to completely purge all of their other cruisers as a design and replace them one for one. There's just the small, tiny, insignificant, itsy-bitsy, tiny little problem that the Royal Navy is flat broke and can't afford to even build a single version of that ship. There's a reason why all the more outlandish cruiser proposals were immediately canned in the aftermath of hostilities.
If they were given it for free, they would want it. If you had to pay for it, they wouldn't want it.
Yeah, if it's a realistic world, it's
Well, the thing is,
it's entirely
it'd be
too
a
much
good
cruiser.
compliment for-
Oh,
It'd be an excellent compliment for Malta class if they were built.
Yeah, like if
If they follow the policies that me and Drac talked about the other day in our video, then yeah, they want them and they make sense to them then, because then they'd be basically building new ships.
yeah, but no Maltas, no point.
But wait. So is that the same as the question? Yeah, the 6 is this the 6-gun Minotaur one? Because he posted
Yeah.
the question twice, or the 6-twin.
Yeah,
Well, I would slightly question the Minotaur. The Minotaur class was 5-twin,
And now we've added a 6th one.
and I'm pretty sure the Royal Navy would be very happy if they had that. Like, 5 is good enough.
Six is Edgar.
6 is technically, yes, the enlarged design, which I don't know how real that actually is. So,
Yeah, but basically, like I said,
It was worked in as a workshop study.
right,
Yeah.
okay.
Sufficiently Nautical on Discord asks, what would options look like for a refit Omaha class? Could they have been turned into AA ships, destroyer leaders, mounting dual 5-inch 38 guns? The problem with the Omahas is the way they're laid out, and the fact that by the time you're looking at the Second World War, they've already had some minor refits. They've already had as many AA guns as they can physically take without compromising the ability of the ship to function, slapped on top of them in most cases. In order to refit them as anti-aircraft cruisers to replace their 6-inch mounts and 6-inch casemates with other weapons, the cost it's not like British cruisers or Japanese cruisers of the interwar and late World War I period, where it's open mounts on deck mountings, where you can take them off and replace them fairly easily, and it's not all that much problem. The Omahas are very bespoke ships, designed for the scout cruiser role. They don't really have any real refit potential, because the cost at the time it would take to turn a Omaha into an aircraft cruiser / destroyer leader by fitting them with dual 5-inch 38 mounts, you could probably build 2 gearings for the same cost and time.
I do think you could bring up the point. Is it doable? Yes. Is it worth doing?
No.
Like, potentially you could fit a number of 5-inch 38 twins on a couple of different locations based on what I'm looking at the Omahas. But
The costs involved
yeah,
would
there's
be...
a lot of work would have to be done.
Yep.
And do you want to? And as it's going to sound strange again, is are they useful for the new war you're facing? It's for the Americans. One of the things they had a big trouble with post World War II was that a lot of their ships were designed for great Pacific vessels, not so great North Atlantic. Not so great at providing the requisite things in North Atlantic. And a classic example is on a calm day, with a good scenario behind her, a USS Iowa or New Jersey or any of them could beat HMS Vanguard. But the Americans reckon, in the several exercises this was found out to be the case, that in a stormy North Atlantic, Vanguard could run rings around them. And the problem was, literally, it was their designs had been so focused on, by necessary, more focused on the Pacific, because for some reason the US Navy, when they think about designing for war, thought, who are we more likely to fight, the Royal Navy or the IJN?
The IJN was...
And God, well, rather than making our ships... so rather than making your ships be purposely compromised for one scenario for the other, you sort of go, well, let's lean them towards something. And they lean them towards the Pacific, very sensibly. But that sensible leaning meant that when it comes to the Cold War, those same ships are not quite what you need.
Yeah, basically. Stephen, is that technically a question? Stephen May asks,
If in doubt, ask and see.
Advice for asking questions. I've recently asked snap queries and forgotten part of the questions that seems obvious to me, leading to half-baked questions. Advice for preventing this besides pre-planning. Basically, no. You are the only person who can control that, Stephen. It's up to you entirely to make sure that your question includes enough information for the person answering it to be able to answer it. There's very little we can do to help you with that.
You need to just write it out on like
I
a
would
Google
always say
Doc or
this
just
is-
in Word.
I always use the advice of, remember that you cannot rely, and this is something I always remember for teaching. I cannot make any assumption when I am teaching a room that anyone has any prior knowledge of the subject.
Exactly.
And that's really annoying for the people who do. It's absolutely really annoying because they're thinking, well, this is just stuff I already know. Because, the first half of this lecture was entirely stuff I know. Why are you bothering with this? Well, because whilst there might be, let's say, might be a third of you who know the topic, there are 2/3 who don't, and I will lose those 2/3 entirely. Whereas hopefully you'll stay listening for the last half, where I'll cover stuff you don't know. And it's the same when asking a question. As one of the things you learn as a lecturer is you never ask a question which you don't explain, which requires any prior knowledge to understand the question, not necessarily to answer it, but to understand the question on the part of the person receiving it.
Yep.
So basically, just play safe. Don't presume they have any prior knowledge. And with that, Raleigh agrees with that, I think. My poodle has now just jumped up to say hello to everyone. Come say hello to Rambling.
The poodle.
What's the next question?
The next question is a Discord question. So that is no, that was last week. Here we go. Typical Refs asks, for the early 1970s, would you rather have AGM-62 Walleye, the Skipper, or Paveway laser-guided bombs on your F4 Phantom for destroying ground targets and probable enemy ships, or would you wait for the Maverick? If I'm destroying ground targets and ships, and I have to be able to do both, Paveway. Paveway with a laser guidance kit. Because that's basically going to guarantee it's the best chance for me to survive that attack run on whatever I'm engaging. I can release the ordnance from further away, I can take evasive maneuvers while still keeping the laser on the target. Especially since I'm an F4, I have a backseater who can literally spend his entire time doing that while I attempt to evade. Again, it's a no-brainer. Wow, I wasn't expecting that one to go down like a lead balloon, but there you go.
Well, I was sitting there listening to it and thinking, yeah, there's not really many options, and yeah,
Oh
the
my
Paveway
god!
works.
Oh my god! It's the reverse of
I think
brew ships
they
yesterday. It's the reverse of brew ships
That's
yesterday.
simple. Well, I tried to be nice.
I know. Oh,
But I
it's
would
just,
I would add one small thing in there.
mhm.
Just one small thing. The question is, why are you doing this to your? Why are you doing this to your Phantoms?
I don't know actually. It wasn't included in the. Excuse me. In the context of the question.
Because that's also correct. Because what kind of ground targets are you after, or what kind of ships are you after? Are you trying to engage enemy warships? In which case, Paveway might not be what you want, because you're there to get within Paveway range. You have to get relatively close to something which might have missiles which actually work, and might have a lot of other guns which actually work.
Not to mention
But that's the scenario. If you don't have the context, what are you using your fighter aircraft to attack on in terms of these targets? Because the Phantom's the fighter aircraft.
Hmm.
Then you have Walleye, as my browser fucking shits itself. There we go.
Well,
Walleye, which was a TV guided glide bomb.
Yeah. Again, a perfectly serviceable unit, but it depends on
What is
target
it you're
talking
targeting?
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. Gunnery officer is typing. We may get some clarification on this. Enemy
Or does
fuel
the
and
question come
logistics.
which I'm going to enjoy answering?
Attacking enemy fuel and logistics installations, also North Vietnamese patrol boats for shills. I'm assuming for shits and giggles, but whatever. Again, like, sure, the F4 Phantom was used for this, and it did have a mixed track record for this. However, there is a degree of why. If I recall correctly, the contextual reason for using the F4 in Vietnam for things like raiding North Vietnam was speed. They can outfly basically anything the NVA could throw up at them. SAMs and gunfire when doing attack runs notwithstanding. But it's also a case of what would be the tactical strategic reason for doing so in this context.
makes sense.
Yeah. And that's going to affect what you're going to pick, as we discussed earlier. It's like, in a scenario where the Royal Navy does have the Maltas, and it's not doing Victorious and those things, it's following through the policy, which me and Drac were outlining. Well, Drac was especially outlining in the video the other week. Then you probably want to go for the Tigers, which had the 3 twin 6 inches and possibly the 5 twin 3-inch guns, because they're basically going to be your, how do I put this? Your primary escort for your large, expensive carrier. Now, how many of them you buy, though, is probably going to be about 4 or 5. Historically, we built about 3 Tigers. But you probably go, well, I'm building 4 Maltas. I've got the 2 Audaciouses. Maybe I want 1 each, so maybe I want 6. But I'm not going to build oodles of them.
No.
Which
wait,
question are we on? Just
I have
disappear for a moment.
no idea where we are.
With a final
There's
nail
a
on
question
this
coming from Knight, which is pretty good.
Well, I just want to finish up this
which
Gary
one?
question.
Yeah.
With regards to that, for me, because of how much I have actually read up on and have immersed myself, shall we say, in Vietnam War, I would probably stick with the F4s and paveways until such a time as the Mavericks came into service, at which point proliferation of the Maverick is going to become priority.
That means I've
Yeah.
caught up on questions that are answered.
So which question are you talking about, Dr. Clark?
So,
I think it's
There's
his
a
most
question
recent
from
one.
1971, which
Yeah.
is kind of fun.
Yeah, but which one is it? I'm not sure.
There's 3 of them. The first one is going to be very interesting with Clark here. It's the one I'm looking at.
Question number 3
Q3.
of his
Number
set. Because
3.
let's do them in reverse order. Because if America lost the pre-World War I Pacific War to Japan, likely losing its specific holdings up to Midway, how does that change America?
I would question.
Knight 681, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of America. The reason why America doesn't lose wars is kind of like Britain doesn't lose war. It takes a lot of wars. It takes a lot to get them pissed, to get them enough that they are going to back off. And in the case of America in pre-World War I, they lose a fleet. Let's say they have a Toshima moment like Russia did versus versus Japan. Let's say after the Russo-Japanese War in 1905, for some reason, America picks a war with Japan in 1908. And they lose a battle. What is the USA going to do? Are they going to go, we're losing and Japan's taking our territories, we need to give in? Or are they going to... Here is the checkbook. It's blank. Build fleets.
You do realise if they lose that pre-dreadnought fleet, because that's what they're going to lose, their pre-dreadnought fleet, and the Japanese walk away with no losses, the Japanese are going to be looking 4 years later when 12 dreadnoughts, 4 battle cruisers, at least 12 scout cruisers, and God knows how many destroyers come over the horizon saying, round 2, and the Japanese fleet is perhaps expanded by 2 pairs of dreadnought battleships and maybe a battle cruiser, and that's it.
So since Clark's camera
That's
slightly
it. That's if the British are. That's if the British are. If the British are actually agreeing to. My camera's acting up.
Yeah,
A
you've
little bit.
been acting a bit slideshowy.
Oh,
Every
sorry.
now and then it
about
just
that. I
freezes
didn't know
up. Yeah, no, but it's just like your head was. We had a slideshow of the various stages.
The thing is, it's not even going to be that slow. It's not going to be 4 years down the road. And also, you have to remember, where's Japan getting their first generation of dreadnoughts from? They're buying them off the British.
Knight says, yeah, the US and Japan were at
And
the
whilst
verge.
the British will... Yes, they were at the verge of war in 1908. That's why I picked 1908.
He says
They're not at the verge of war between after 1914. There's a reason they're not on the verge of war from 1914 onwards.
Yeah.
If you've noticed, the Japanese are kind of involved in World War One on the side of the Allies,
Yeah, there's
which
also,
means the Americans decide very tacitly to take things down a couple notches.
Yeah, there's also apparently they do not have the advantages they did in the 1940s. What advantages does America have in the 1940s they don't have in the 1910s? What's radically different? Because the
In the
railways...
1910s, they're building infrastructure. In 1940s, they're building infrastructure. There's no difference. In both periods, they have to build the infrastructure before they can build the fleets.
And I will point out that if he's talking about America being less economically developed, no. All of the transcontinental railways that are extant in 1940 are extant in 1908. Most of them have similar capacities than they would that they would have in terms of actual track and passing loop availability that they would have during the First and Second World Wars. yes, the locomotives available are
The
slightly
American
less
GDP in 1908 dwarfs the Japanese one.
strong. They have the yards available to do exactly what they have done during the Second World War and the First World War, and probably scare the living bejesus out of the British and make the Germans go, well, that's it, we can't keep up with it with even the Americans, never mind the British.
Well, no, in the nicest way, if the Americans start building up that number, guess who the Royal Navy's going to be building to match now from that point onwards.
Yeah. The Americans...
It's always worded as the next largest power,
Yeah.
not Germany specific, the next largest power. So then Germany's going to find Britain are building the ships to tech match America, and it's a tech race with America, and they're building them to match the size of the American fleet.
Yeah.
At which point, Germany's going to be going, oh my lord, and the British Expeditionary Force is going to be going and go, well, we wanted more artillery. Shut up. But we want more guns. Not happening.
Yeah, well, or he'll go
We
one
matter too. The army has a voice. No, it doesn't in this circumstance.
of...
Go away.
Well,
Come back.
It's
later.
either that or
When it's over.
It's either that or the German Navy will adopt a 2-power standard in miniature and go, we just can't compete against the Royal Navy at this point. It's a lost cause to even try. Let's try.
Oh, they're gone. They're
Yeah.
gone. German Navy are. The German Navy are out for the count. There is no way they're getting financially into that battle.
So in that
There is
case,
no way
yeah.
no way the here is ever going to allow them that money.
Yeah, so in that
The
case,
same
then,
case as for why the British Army will not be getting money in Britain into this scenario. The German Navy will be going, we want more money to match the British. And the here will go, and how much of our budget do you want?
yeah. So-
Yes, we do have a bayonet fixed and pointed at your neck. How much of our budget do you want?
Yeah, like I said, you're basically...
Oh, you don't want any of our budget. That's good. Go
Yeah,
away.
You're basically looking at the German Navy going, you know what, we're bigger than the French and we're bigger than all the other powers in Europe put together. I'm happy with this. This is fine. We didn't need to match the British anyway, right, guys? And looks at the army officer sat over there with a bayonet on his waist. Yeah, this is fine. Being bigger than all the rest of the European powers is fine. We're happy with this.
So, also, Phoenix is raising a
Yeah.
semi-decent point, but basically, it's very going to be interesting to have the Japanese win this fight 2-1.
I mean, yeah,
Like-
Knight says
But
apparently...
I assume just
yeah,
slightly,
Knight- yeah.
slightly sidestepping that. Apparently, if they do win,
Yeah, Knight is saying the Americans will have to play the game the way the IGN wants. Why? Why do they have to? Why do the Americans
What's
have
making
to...
them? Toko Hayachiro. Let's put it this way. Toko Hayachiro is good, and yes, I do believe he could win a first big battle against the Americans. He could. In 1908, they do have enough forces. Toko Hayachiro is good enough. If anyone's going to pull it off, and anyone's going to be in charge, it'll probably be him, and he can do it. Okay?
But, basically because...
He can win the first battle.
Basically because
He won't win the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth battle.
No. No. In fact, he'll probably be one of the officers who go, okay, we've won the first battle. Yeah, let's try and argue for a return to the way things were before the war, shall we? Because that's all we're going to bloody get.
I mean, I think
Let's try and
trying
get
to
this
win-
peace now.
Trying to win that first battle is already an extremely tall order,
Yep.
just because this is the period.
In 1908, it isn't considering the American logistics abilities and what the fleet they could actually support out that far in 1908. That's until they've built the infrastructure, they can't get the vast majority of their fleet out there.
Not gonna take
So
them
if they
long, though.
try to go all over Hazard Perry, and send a small fleet to charge out and make their point, that first fleet will probably meet its comeuppance.
The second
Because
one won't.
it's logistics and how much they can actually deploy out. The second fleet, they will have built the infrastructure for.
Yeah, a large bunch of cranes
And
will
then
appear on Hawaii, and people wonder where they came from.
See, my thought would be is the U.S. could take a large
No, it's going to be the
force.
coaling stations.
It'll be it can send to the Philippines, send it with tenders, coal up there,
No.
then you can fight because Japan does not
No.
have any island bases at this point in time.
They don't
I mean, how
have the
did you-
coal ships to transport the coal there in the first place, Phoenix.
Hang on.
The Great White Fleet was entirely supported by British coal ships.
It's the aftermath of the Great White Fleet is where you see the US build up this the coaling stations in the Philippines, in Hawaii, build up a fleet of US owned colliers. It's the class of ships that leads to the ship that gets converted into Langley. you see this massive build-up in
So-
post Great White Fleet
Yeah,
of
my follow-on question though is if there's a
they're
period
not-
of tension with Japan where you expect to be in a war, why would you not start building those then in anticipation of this? You have
Because
to go
they
from
had the
Japanese to
tension.
Pacific.
That's what they did. They had a period of tension from 1908 onwards, and that's when they built all the things.
yeah. Like, bear in mind, the question isn't
But
so
if
much.
the battle takes place in 1908, it's going to be that they're not going to be built.
Yeah, the thing is, Phoenix, we're just going off what we've been given in terms of the questions. So.
Okay, yeah. Because this is one of those things I'm looking balance of forces, right? You know, Japan with all 6 pre-dreadnoughts in 1908 versus 16 on the part of the Americans that they send with the Great White Fleet alone. Obviously, as we've established, the
Japan
Americans
has
did not
more than
send
that
all
in
of them.
1908.
In 1908,
Mhm.
see, hang on.
Yeah, they've
Should
got
be-
and of course you've got their
They have
total-
more.
Yeah, and then you've got the
I
far.
mean, are you counting the
They've
armored
got-
cruisers? Because I'm just double check.
No,
my
I'm
numbers
counting
right now.
the wins for the Russian. No, you've got the numbers wrong, Phoenix.
Oh, you know what? I don't have the Russian ships in this. That's right. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so it's only 6
No.
Japanese, but there's also the Russian captures. Sorry.
And there's the
Yeah,
British built
okay.
ships which they're getting delivery of in 1908. So,
What other British ships?
so-
Because I have the Katori class should have already been delivered by that point, and then they don't have any new build ships until the Satsumas, but those I believe arrived in 1910. But
yeah, so
Well,
Also, just very
Satsuma
quick-
was laid down in 05 and I believe was commissioned in 09, but like fully like delivered in 10, as I recall.
the Satsuma is launched in 1906. Aiki is launched in 1907. And they are completed and fully commissioned in 1910 and 1911. But they are slow walked through it, and they do get some equipments from the UK during that. And some stuff comes in. And then they're followed by the Kawashi class, which are laid down 1909, launched 1910. So they are not part of it.
I do forget how actually quite good looking Satsuma is.
Yeah, they are good ships, and there'll be another problem because it's one of those scenarios of if you've got them pretty much ready to be ready to enter service, and they would be pretty much ready to enter service, you would have you could get those into service in 1908. You could get them if you were prepared to rush them a bit. You could get them into service in 1908, and they've got the Katori class Katori class battleships, which came into service post the Russo-Japanese War, didn't they? They were completed in 1906. They came from the UK, Vickers and Armstrong, Mikasa, Ashi, Shikishima class, Fuji's.
well, Fuji herself, Yashima sank in
Yeah.
the Japanese War, but
Yeah, so they have Fuji. Yeah, they have. That's. Two. And then 3. 4. So they have. I would say they have 8 pretty much of their own, plus they have the Russian captured ones, and they have their armored cruisers, which are second line battleships.
Given
Because
them
that's
a
how they
battle
build
line
them.
of something like 18, rough ballpark figure.
Which, if you consider the Americans are also in this period dealing with German interests in South America, all sorts of problems, their own ships availability, how many could the Americans forward move across quickly? And if the Americans are demanding instantaneous reactions and trying to do the Spanish-American War 2 Electric Boogaloo, and they surge whatever available, let's say the Americans end up sending a force of, let's say, just 12 ships, which wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I could see Togo winning that battle.
especially as it's going to be probably far closer to Japan. His ships are going to be far better prepared. He's going to wait for them to come in. But I don't see Japan going on and then taking a lot of great territory in that time, because most of that territory, if they go and expand into it, is going to widen the war. Because those islands, there's going to be, if they go and take some of those islands listed, they're going to be fighting Germany. If they take some other islands listed, they could be taking Britain. They're fighting Britain, in which case that's their only technical ally. Which is a very interesting alliance with them, which basically is a two-power system. So as long as another power doesn't get involved in the battle, in the war, Britain doesn't have to join in. But if another power decided to join in, then you might find the Royal Navy coming in which case the Americans could be really worried about that. And there's also the factor that with Britain and Japan technically be allied, are the Americans prepared to send their whole fleet to go and attack the Japanese versus keeping some ships back on the Atlantic coast just in case the British get involved? Because there are some American politicians, even in this period, who are just that paranoid enough about Britain that they might want to do that. So yeah, first battle, I could see Togo Hayashiro winning. Second battle, when the Americans turn up with all the stuff they've built in the infrastructure they've built to build it, yeah, that's not going to happen. And third battle is certainly not going to happen.
Not Roosevelt going off. So just there were U.S. politicians that were genuinely wary of getting involved in geopolitical things that Britain was also closely tied to because of just how capable Britain was of projecting its power.
And also because some of them were still wanting to refight the War of 1812 and actually win it. You must remember, despite the mythos that is sometimes taught in American schools, that the Americans won the War of 1812, there are still quite a lot of politicians in that period who have a massive chip on their shoulder about the War of 1812 and the reason the White House is white. I think there was one period where it was almost mentioned pretty much every month for about 5 years in the late 19th century for some reason in the Senate and House of Representatives. I seem to remember reading that in a book. I'm not sure how accurate it is. I'm not going to go and scan through all the minutes of the House of Representatives and Congress to work out if it's true.
You are reading. I assume you've answered all of Knight's questions, haven't you, Dr. Clark?
Probably. I don't necessarily assume that.
We just focused in on the one we've been interested in. We've ignored. We haven't jumped on the rest yet.
No.
I mean
No. I mean the qualifiers he's been adding about how
USN has nearly 3 times the pre-dreadnoughts, but they're divided. The Japanese would take the American lands and leave the British lands. What? The Japanese would take American lands and leaving the British lands alone. You mean the colonial possession? Probably.
Yes.
Yeah,
the British can shut off the American coal supply. Is that meant to be?
They can also shut off the Japanese coal supply.
Yeah, that just says there, so I don't actually know who there means.
The British can cut off both sides for coal supply and go, "You nicest way, war's over." They can literally do that because, especially for the first part of the war, 1908, they're going to both be trying to draw from British coal stocks in the region to move their ships around. So the British can just go, sorry, this coal's all been purchased. Which is how the British do it.
There's also a case of...
It's already been purchased by the Royal Navy, so you can't have it.
As historically, the British were not actually invested in getting either of them into an actual war. They actually went out of their way to moderate the two sides to ensure that they didn't. In part because they didn't really want to see a war in that region at that point.
Also because it would cause them trouble to, of course, they'd have their two potential closest allies actually fighting each other.
Knocking 7 bells out of each other.
It's really not helpful to the British. The British have preferred partners they want to deal with in the world. The French, they're used to dealing with. They don't really like them, but they're like the annoying neighbour who always stinks because they can't have to have the weird cheese. You just deal with it. You just carry on. They're perfectly reasonable neighbours in the end, as long as they keep on their side of the fence. And if they jump over the side of the fence, by gum, they'll get billio. But as long as they stay their side of the fence, we're fine with them. The Americans are kind of like your cousins who are slightly weird, slightly gun crazy, but ultimately in the end you love them. You both enjoy beef burgers. You both enjoy chips. You both enjoy games which involve throwing pigskins about. They're perfectly fine. And the Japanese are a fellow island nation and sort of constitutional monarchy to an extent in the British mind at this point. They are lovely, and they are a lot smaller and heavily dependent on the British for their global security. So they are a perfect ally as far as Britain's concerned.
It's also a case of Edward VII went out of his way to also publicly paint the Japanese in a very positive light throughout his reign, pointing to the exchange between Edward VII and Nicholas II of Russia. No, the Japanese are not a yellow menace from the east. They are just as noble and capable as any other European Christian nation, and should be treated with the dignity therein.
He was very much not happy with Britain's inaction He was very much not happy with Britain's inaction during the Russo-Japanese War.
Russo-Japanese War.
Although
we made sure the Russian fleet got terrible coal and had to defend on French coal the entire way round. How much more could we do to load the frigating bases without actually getting involved in just sinking the Russian fleet?
Oh no, I'm aware.
You know, in a nice way, if we'd done any more, we would have actually given the Russians casus belli.
We're also very angry at them for the Dogger Bank incident as well.
It's almost like the Russians tried to get us involved.
We were very happy with that. We were very happy with, in the nicest way, we were very happy with keeping them, fighting the Japanese because it stopped them trying to attack India.
And also massively diminished their fleet. It diminished their fleet at a time when they were actually getting somewhat close to. But I think at that point they were coming up on the Germans by 1903. They were actually getting towards pre-dreadnought numbers that were getting close to where Germany was. And the British were going,
Yeah. They were past the 2-power standard for quite a while historically.
Oh, no, I know.
The Germans had taken over from them in the 2-power standard, but they were coming back, yes.
Yeah.
Britain didn't mind. At that point, Britain was operating on a 2-power standard. And frankly, it'd be more funny if they had overtaken the Germans, because that would have just caused the Germans to have an absolute...
Yeah, the Germans would have completely lost... Yeah, the Germans would have completely lost the plot. Okay.
And if you don't know what a kitty litter fit is, just imagine a mad cat sitting in its litter box, just chucking the litter everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a kitty litter fit.
Yep. So...
Bad enough when they knock things on the side, when they knock the kitty litter out.
YouTube question. Brandon Larson, what if a squadron of AH-64 Apaches and a squadron of AH-1Z Cobra helicopters fully armed with crew and ground vehicles and fuel and ground crew are sent back to participate in Operation Galvanic, the invasion of Tarawa? How does the battle go? Much better, because you have a squadron of Apaches and Cobras with Hellfires and Hydra missiles and 30mm and 20mm rotary cannon.
You have to get the Apache. No, actually, you don't. You have to get the Apaches out there as quickly as possible because that's a saltwater environment. Cobras are fine for that. The Apaches you don't need there. Send the Apaches over to Europe.
Oh God!
Which time are we talking modern ones? Because there is a big difference between because there is a big difference between the AH-1 Cobra that you first see,
AH-1Z Cobra.
The single-engine Vietnam funny one with a grenade launcher and a 7.62 minigun in the same turret, whereas the modern Super Cobra, which is a twin-engine aircraft with a big rotary cannon, Hellfires, and dumbfire missiles. Or rockets even.
It's an AH-1Z.
That will do more than a job.
Thank you, Waifu. We're talking Vipers, not Cobras.
Yes, Vipers, not Cobras.
Also,
so basically, more than enough work in Tarawa, so you don't need it. And the Apaches, as said, saltwater. Doesn't matter which variant. I've yet to meet a version of the Apache which actually does well maintenance-wise in a saltwater environment and doesn't need to be completely rebuilt almost every other day. So, in the nicest way, send them to Europe. They'll be far more useful there. You can keep them away from the thing which likes to try and actively kill their engines.
How do you like that one, Rubble? Hellfire to the face. The Western Desert Cobra.
It really depends on the variant. The the army actually is planning to basically use the AH-64Es on saltwater. I'm not so sure it's a thing that really. I don't know long term, but like short term and like short term operational deployments, yeah, they work
Yeah,
in saltwater.
they have short-term operational. Yes, they do work, and it's a short-term operational deployment, but it's not good for the service life, and you need to strip down the aircraft and change the engines out pretty much afterwards because they haven't paid for the engines to be upgraded to be saltwaterized. It's basically a whole load of things like you have sacrificial anodes on hulls to prevent saltwater corrosion, or
I
galvanic
believe
action
it's a thing that
and
happened with the
and some sort of
AH-64Ds to
corrosion hulls.
E's. I could be wrong though because Britain did the
Yeah.
exact thing off of Libya for like 6 months to a year. Maybe it's like the
yes,
AH-1s.
they had.
but-
Yes, the British did do them, but the British ones have different engines in than their American counterparts. And B, even the British ones had to have their engines stripped down on a regular basis, which meant whilst you had 4 aircraft intended, usually attached to HMS Ocean for the job, they usually only had 2 available, as 2 would be used during the day and then they'd be stripped down and repaired the next day.
Actually, it's like I'm trying to
You
remember.
can
Like
do that
I don't-
in Libya. You can do that in a Libya-style operation. You cannot afford to have that going on in a Tarawa-style operation. And it doesn't make sense, because a squadron of Cobras is more than enough to do the job, and they're going to actually be able to do it on a more efficient level. So you might as well send those Apaches to Europe, when you can use them at a far more efficient level, and they can successfully operate, and you can win both wars in half the time. Because let's be honest, that squadron of Apaches in Europe in 1944, or that period, would wipe out the German army. There is literally nothing they have that can deal with that force.
Let me just. An Apache pilot here. What am I doing answering this question?
An Apache pilot here?
Yeah,
Mako is
In
an
this kitchen,
Apache pilot.
Localized entirely. Never mind.
Localized entirely to your flight deck.
Can I see it? No. Oh.
I'm glad
It's
at how
one of those
many
things,
vomit reactions the command chief getting.
Yeah, saltwater is it's an issue with aircraft, and it's one of those interesting things when you get into it. It's one of the reasons why, when we're talking about costs of aircraft, if you're maintaining an entire fleet which is going to be able to operate from carriers, operate consistently from a saltwater environment, you are going to find things cost more, because you have to build not just the components to deal with saltwater spray and the saltwater effect in the air, the heavy saltwater air. You also have to deal with the fact that how you fight fires on ships and what you use. And you might use foam, but that foam will tend to be supported by might well be supported with salt water, as that's the thing that's most readily available. Your source of a source of water for fighting fires is salt water, and that causes all sorts of issues with aircraft. In that, if they are not properly designed to deal with it, and when you turn on protective sprays to try and stop the fire spreading, you actually do a lot of damage to the aircraft, and you put the aircraft out of service. This was one of the advantages with the Swordfish, and one of the reasons it was designed to it. It was designed in some ways with the best of the 1930s technology to be able to survive saltwater firefighting, because the aircraft would get damped in it. It would cause trouble with their wings and their wires, but they could replace those all very quickly. So you would have, oh great, 18 aircraft have been doused in this thing. We're now not able to operate these aircraft for the next 24 hours. But they were able to be made operational within the next 24 hours. When they had issues with fires aboard and they had Hawker Hurricanes before they were properly converted into Sea Hurricanes and later standards, you fought the fires with the salt water and you no longer had the Hurricanes. They were completely unusable and unrectifiable. They were beyond the pale of being able to fix. So, there are, yes, I can operate Apaches in that scenario, but I don't need to. I've got the Cobra Zs. I don't need them. I don't need the Apaches for that. I can use the Apaches for something else, and the Cobras will do a great job in Tarawa. Because again, Tarawa's not that big. You don't need that many aircraft to be going around doing it. In fact, in many ways, you'd be crowding the airspace with more aircraft.
Yep. I feel like we've kind of beat this question over the head with a sharpened sledgehammer.
Next.
Probably.
Maybe it's a Discord question now.
No, that was a Discord question.
Yeah, that one was from Gunner Officer, wasn't it?
I think so.
Or- Yeah. Oh no, it wasn't from Gunner Officer. It was from someone else. But it was what if the squadrons placed them during the invasion of Tara. So yeah, it's YouTube now.
Good.
And no, we didn't miss that night. Clark asked us to go in reverse order for those 3 questions.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I? I was doing something. If only I could remember what I was doing. Well, apart from hosting ramblings, obviously. But apart from that, that was
At
code.
times,
War
Fleet, your
crimes?
memory is incredibly concerning.
My memory's shocking, but I've known this for years. Oh, I've lost where we were. Wooden. So, Dr. Clark. So that was the one. 1961. Is it accurate that the 1949 Darings are where the Royal Navy destroyers would have been without the treaty? Ooh, that is.
Well, we've got Dr. Clark here. As I recall, this is kind of an area he's quite specialised in, actually.
Yes. Yes, it is.
I believe there's a quite nice book about it.
yeah,
Not quite the
there
exact
is.
thing, but...
Shameless book
I
plug, Ramblings edition.
I would say your equivalents to the Tribal class destroyers are probably going to be like that. I would imagine they'd have 4 guns and the 2 sets of torpedoes. I would imagine the fleet destroyers would probably have the 2 quintuple torpedo launchers and probably 3 twin guns, so they'd be slightly smaller. But yeah, broadly speaking, without the Washington Naval Treaty, without the naval treaties, that's probably where the destroyers end up by that period, because they're going to be a bit of a natural growth in competition. And as destroyers grow, they're going to be expected to do more. This is the circular reasons why ships grow in size. Because as you build them to be better and better ships, and as they're bigger ships, you all want to do more. So the more you want to do with them, the more space they have to have the things to do those things.
There you are then, you see. Words.
So, next fleet.
Yes.
And there's...
Lazy, Authorsan asks, a question to cause fleet nightmares and great concern on Dr. Clark. What if a few months before the German invasion of Poland, all of the navies had their ships, including those under construction and turned museum ships, suddenly and magically transformed into ship girls? Their crews are safe and sound, though. How would that change the course of the war, especially if their rigging works similarly to those of Azure Lane? Oh, that's... Oh.
Right.
I passed this
I'm
to
gonna-
Foxstone Dragon.
I'm going
Actually-
to take this opportunity to drop into the audience so I can go and get some food because I'm starving.
So, actually, thank you for mentioning Azure Lane, because that makes this much easier.
Oh, for the love
no.
of Mike. Kill me now.
Actually, it's a simple thing. In Azure Lane, they can manifest their rigs as the actual ships.
You what?
So for cruising, they are just sailing around as the actual ship, with them sitting on the deck going happy-go-lucky having tea. So, in that regard, they're pretty simple. No, Wellesley, we do know the Royal Navy ships do indeed drink tea.
Yeah, but if you
Can
want
we not
sort
get
of-
siditracked by what
No.
stupid
Well,
fairy
it-
MacGuffin the people in Azure Lane do or don't do and get
In
back to the
terms of-
question?
When it tends to actually get into a question, that's when, in terms of when they actually get into combat, that's when they'll swap their rigs to actual,